Hello，Hello，能听到吗？我这边开始测试了一个。我们要做个直播，所以要测一下现在。
YouTube 吗
？YouTube，所以这怎么发呀？还有登微信吗？我现在在直播。嗯？什么什么？ OK，然后声音怎么样 ？Hello， 能听到吗 ？Hello， 测试一下 test，check。声音能听到吗？测试一下。Hello。
Hello。check。喂，你能听到我说话吗？能。屋里啊，在。Hello。Hello，你听我说话吗
OK。
Hello。Hello。
就推一下。现在能看到画面吗？我发链接了呀。
你发链接吧，你测试好了吗？
对。
但是那个我人在这儿，你得看一下这个镜头是怎么样的吧？
行。
你先看一下，来，我站这儿。然后就把那个位置给配了。你得先开我的 material， 然后再把它的 PPT 录的好以后放这儿来给它放。这样我把这个就不让他们做了。这我得还得往后站是吧？
我最好找个凳子，我人抱着太痛苦了。
啊，这样可以吗？觉得这样可以吗？
我觉得可以啊。
你站着我看一下。啊，我觉得可以，要不然垫板舒服，有点硬。
是吧？行。反正这椅子摆的不是很好看。OK， 然后你那边能发直接发链接吗？我这个小程序都打不开，不知道为什么。现在是这种一会儿要用的直播画面。我觉得就可以调这个角度。
这样是不是好一点？
我觉得没问题啊，这直播。
这样高一点好一点，对吧？
对，这直播。
啊，现在已经直播了。
对，现在。
Seriously。
对，现在正在直播，但是没什么问题。
就是我一开始我是这样子，然后。
对，咱这个 first chat 大概多久？40分钟。
哪一个？
就是他讲完以后大概有30分钟。行，那电没问题。行，那这个座位我就 reserve 了。
那你把直播链接两个都生成一下。
对，正在测。然后等着就行。 会儿可能开场前我到时候提醒你，然后咱这个我就不关了，然后就一直开着了，这样链接不会变。啊？什么？
哎，直播链接生成好了，发在群里，我其他群里。
OK，我现在。
赶紧充电。
OK。都有2个呢。对，我刚才那个同事说，一会儿尽量减少走动。
啊，好。
走动的时候，高跟鞋收音的话会快。
I don't know. Yeah,
Napkin? I'm not sure. Sorry.
Sorry. 我好像。
车里有啊。
车里有吗？我不记得了。
我车里没有那种 napkin。
就这样，管他吃吧，我也是醉了，自己去厕所拿。不是减少走动的意思，就是说它会哒哒哒哒。
对。
尤其是我，好，我会踮着脚走的。
行。
我这样，我踮着脚走。
行，现在都没事儿。
啊，我踮着脚走，我会注意的。
OK。啊？什么 ？OK，但是我直播的先放这个了。 你在我那儿。
啊，那你发给我们就发在群里。
行，正式估计再有半个小时，现在人都在陆续进场。然后我现在有一个问题，你能不能看一下现在这个图片是不是齐全的？我现在直播这边放了张图片，但是我这边显示它是只有一半。OK， 我明白。现在有没有好点？好的，我现在就放这儿了，然后等一下可能切换之前告诉你，估计再有20分钟，半个小时吧。对，哎。
这哥哥还不来，这不有中国人。
没事。 行吧，行吧，估计暂时就这样了，没什么别的。Hello，杰子，我这边刚改了群公告，然后我看到你应该登录了是吧？没问题，你就 share 一下朋友圈什么的吧。行，没事，那你就先用着，没问题。
Hello, everybody. So cool to see everyone.
Yeah, hold on a second. We probably need to wait until
Yeah,
7
yeah.
o'clock. Because yeah, sure. You can please download your slides into this computer.
Can I use my computer, or it's better to do this?
It's better using his computer because we're doing streaming right now.
Ah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I send you the
Do you know
link.
how many people are going to be watching on streaming?
A lot.
Hey,
So
Alex, nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you. And do you mind to share
The slides.
Because I have
we're doing streaming over there.
Yes.
So.
Streaming.
Sir?
We are doing a
Yeah,
streaming.
so you want the slides there, yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Okay,
I
sure.
have set up all of things right here, but please make sure that you don't walk so away from the laptop.
Yeah, you have what set up?
I mean, I have set up all of the streaming right here.
Yeah.
You can just
But why can't I walk away from you?
because the receiver.
The sound.
Yeah, the sound.
Okay, alright.
But I think it will be fun because you have a microphone right here. So
What's your name?
Alex.
Alex. Nice to meet you. Okay, cool. I think I have them
you can use AirDrop to send it to me.
Okay, so I'm gonna put them onto my flash drive.
Or you can use AirDrop.
I'll just put on the
Okay, no problem.
Go.
Thanks.
Do you have USB?
Yeah.
Or I can AirDrop it. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
And then say,
Do you need clicker?
Ah.
Clicker?
No, I need a click. Do you have a clicker?
I can. Yeah, I think.
Of course,
I
I'd
have.
love a clicker. I need to buy one to have my own.
So which one? It's a.
Just inform you that for tonight's event, we'll have you. I will give the brief introduction, and you have like 45 minutes talk. Sorry, what? 1 hour? One half? One half?
With Q&A.
Oh no. I understand. I just let you know. So
Without Q&A, it would be like 1:15.
yeah, I understand. What I mean is for the presentation, how long it takes?
1:15.
1:15.
Is that okay?
Yeah, and after that, I will have the file chat with you.
Ah.
Yeah, and after that is the Q&A session.
What's the chat?
Fireside chat, just like the conversation.
Fireside?
Fireside chat.
Sorry.
I've never heard of that before.
Oh, you never heard of that?
Fireside.
Yeah, it's just like.
Just like a chat, a
It's
random
just like
chat.
chat. We
Very
call that fireside chat.
Okay.
It's like more cozy or just conversation, interview.
Okay, interview. Okay, cool.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's like the interview style. I will ask you several questions, and after that is the Q&A session. Okay?
Yes. Actually, I need to change something on the slides. Sorry, I need your help with this.
Oh, okay.
So look at the end. Where is it? Yeah, probably need.
Okay. So, could I just copy it? Right?
No. I'll change it
Okay.
and then you put it. So at the end.
Mostly here because this.
No, I'll be there.
You can take
Okay.
it.
I'll do that.
Yeah, that is the just play for the computer.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Kimberly, nice to meet you. It's gonna be a while. It's gonna be quite a few hours. Hope that's okay with you. Thank you. Okay, what I want to ask. So at the end, we're giving away books for free,
Okay. Oh, nice.
but they have to like email. So because there's live stream, like I can't say unlimited books because people will have there's like 1,000 books. We need to expect, but do you know approximately how many people?
I think it's about like 150.
150 live stream.
Yeah.
And then
100.
100.
100 on the.
I said 80.
And online.
80 registered, but how many did you?
No, not 80 registered. 180 registered.
180
No. Total is 250 registered.
with the online.
But people register probably show up is only 50%.
Okay.
So we have around 100 online registered.
Yeah.
And 150 on-site registered.
Okay.
That I just cut it by half.
Okay.
to
So
show
you
up.
think like 200 books is gonna be enough? Yeah. Okay, that's a lot of books.
Are these your books?
Yeah, that's my book.
I want to have one.
Yeah. Just send the email.
Okay. So that's the only thing you want to know?
Yeah, I just want to say here as well.
By the way, sir, I heard your podcast since I
Yeah.
was here for
Yeah,
since
that's so cool.
2016.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
October.
cool.
Yeah, it's very early.
Yeah.
That's an early stage.
Well, you will know a lot of the people I'm gonna be
And I
mentioning.
took your courses on Udemy.
You took which one?
Data science A to Z.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's the first time when Mary contacted me, say, yeah, could you please help us to host the event for Kirill? I say, oh, that name sounds really familiar to
Yeah,
me. So
yeah.
who is he? So, oh my God, he's my teacher. Okay, I love to do that.
Yeah, okay, that's really cool.
So how long have you been here?
How long am I here?
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm here only until Sunday because this weekend is the Udemy Live conference for instructors, and so I'm here to
Udemy.
attend. Oh, I'm actually going to be on one panel, and I'm going to be leading one panel,
Okay.
like running it. So it's they have it once a year. I haven't been since for 2 years, so like I thought, might as well. Okay, so just to show you like a little bonus, 200 limit. You
So
need to.
you don't need this one.
I do. This is separate. This is for later that we might use these materials for something else.
Okay, yeah.
So that's that.
Yeah.
And then that I need to.
So, yeah. You just said 200 bucks. I mean, first come, first serve.
Yeah. I'll say that. Just check that. 1 sec. I'll just check that. I'm so glad we have a bit of extra time.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, I understand that you need like 30 minutes for the buffer. So
Yeah.
basically, start at 7 o'clock and give more time for the people coming on the traffic jam.
Yeah, traffic was like when I looked at it first, it was like 52 minutes. But then when I looked at it just before, it's like 1 hour 10 or 1 hour 15.
So you drive here from San Francisco?
Yeah, by Uber. But it was okay. I was finishing the slides in the Uber.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I live on the edge.
Oh.
But originally we had one day.
Yeah, that's fine because we have another meetup. We hosted for Foxconn. Foxconn CEO Harry Ball. So his meetup is July 6th.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have to say, I'm really thank you for your movie.
Yeah.
We have 1 week
so
later.
you get these.
Yeah, otherwise it will be too tight for me.
Yeah.
Oh.
So you see quite a lot of slides.
Yeah.
Wait, what's this?
Could we share the slides after the talk?
I will need to get back to you on that one. Probably. But we'll do it our way, like through SlideShare or something like that, and then we will send you the link.
Okay.
So because like some things I can't just like it's not my decision anymore. It's like the guys in the company have to say.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because they have processes. But I think it shouldn't be a problem. It's gonna be fun. I found an error. Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, you can.
Will I be able to play a video here at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the sound will go there?
Yeah.
The sound,
Sound
yeah,
will-
yeah, I think
Yeah.
the sound will go there.
Okay.
But you can try.
Yeah, we should try.
Yeah, we should try. We have time.
I think if we connect this, the sound will go there.
Okay.
Now I'm ready for the.
Huh?
I think it will be very interesting.
It's, yeah. Yeah, I hope so. So which course did you take?
I don't take from the academy.
Ah, you just listen to the
I
podcast.
just listen podcast
Okay.
and some Coursera classes, and I do some project as well
Yeah.
by myself,
Yeah.
just from scratch,
Yeah.
from very beginning.
On
to-
Kaggle?
Yeah, Kaggle and something.
Yeah. Okay.
Very interesting.
Okay, that should be good.
That's our first data science forecast I have heard.
Yeah.
I think that's still in a very early stage.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
level
yeah.
when you are-
That's so cool, man. You've been able to start.
Because actually, as an organizer, I'm not sure who we invite.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ah, you find them from the podcast.
Yeah.
So have you invited anybody? Who have you invited from the podcast?
Well, I mean, I just
You know Ruben Kogel? He's in San Francisco. You can invite him. He's a very good speaker.
I can't remember the name.
Yeah.
Yes.
我说你还是要拍点照片的，
Well,
不是我的人
yeah,
啊。
I will take
如果
some
他不
photos.
给我也没办法。
Yeah. By the way, I will take some photos now.
Yeah. We can send you these photos later.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of course, no problem. And we do need everybody to sign a disclaimer that they're okay for us to use the photos. That's only.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think we need that because we did every time. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
even
nobody-
Bright, yeah, we don't do that.
don't do
If we
that.
open.
So it's fine.
All right.
Yeah. they're-
I'll ask him to start.
Yeah, you can ask them.
Okay, so one thing I had to also remember
It's
was
fine. We have 10 minutes.
stage 4. Alright, then I'm ready to give you this. So version 3, and I will need maybe that was like that.
And I will delete it after sharing immediately.
You will?
Yeah, I mean I will delete the material after the sharing.
After oh, thank you, that would be nice, thank you. What day is it today?
Today it's
29?
26.
26? 26 July.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So the folder is the 26 one?
Yeah, just take the whole folder.
Okay.
I just said, well, I will check.
San Francisco meetup, July 26, 2000.
Oh,
You got a smaller one.
Yeah, smaller one. Yeah. Because I will check last time on the first floor to make sure there's no people go to the.
Yeah. Okay.
So when I come back from the
Yeah.
So,
check the audio?
Yeah, that's
but not this video, check something else.
just
Or you could maybe check the start, but don't show the whole video, okay?
Sure.
Data science has change the world. I'm actually not Indian. That's what I want to be.
check. Check.可以剪。放不出声音有可能。
什么放不声音啊？
对，它的 video。
How's that?
就
No,
check
no, the sound come out.
Why not?
为什么？
I'm not sure. I try to like change the output right here, but
哎，等一下，我让他。
They always change, just like data now.
Yeah.
it's just coming from
Well,
the laptop.
What is this? Is that HDMI?
That's yeah, HDMI.
Do you need this?
Yeah.
But like, I have a.
She will check
She
for
will check.
1 second. Yeah.
But if it's playing here,
It should be.
it should be. But
yeah,
it should be.
link
No, I mean like if it's playing here, then it's not going there. right? It can only be playing on one place.
Yeah, so that's why I try
Maybe you
to,
don't have that yet.
yeah, I try to extend my here.
Adjust it on your computer. Here.
And I, yeah, like, it's just coming from the internal system.
Okay.
I try to like change the bass sounds
Okay.
output, but nothing happened.
Okay.
What if we put like microphone here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can
I
do
can
that
do
for sure.
It will work?
Yeah. It will work.
Well, let's give it a go. Which one is working?
It's
Both
you need
work.
to, it's working.
Do you need to
You can
double check?
try.
Yeah, let's try it.
Do you need to?
You can try that first. Yeah, we try
Around
that.
us. What makes data science what it is the fact that there's so many different fields
But
But that is just from here.
the sounds.
I think
that
it's,
intersect
it's maybe.
yeah. Hey guys at the back, can you hear this?
at data science.
Can you hear that?
Businesses can make decisions about the future.
We already have it here.
Yeah.
Just try that again.
Are you okay to hold it?
Yeah, I can hold
We're
that.
like
Yeah, I can-
technology instead of putting it all the way out
Yeah,
there.
I can hold that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So we're about to start.
Mm,
There's so many of you. We need microphones.
Yeah.
Thank you.
thanks.
Yeah. Let's check. Let's
You can double check. I can just.
You can. Yeah. Let's do that quickly.
You can. I will disconnect it. It's a
You are
screen.
streaming
So this one?
using this
Yes.
screen.
You can-
It is streaming now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, so he will streaming the introduction part and
But there's no video streaming though. Yeah. Just.
Yeah, I will record the video. Yeah, 如果你没关系，之后再 Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's
But there's no camera. Yeah.
it's this camera.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, it looks good to me. Clicker? Where's the clicker?
拿这个
Clicker 1 second.
就对着他话筒，对着那个音线特别短。哦，没事。我给你拿个 clicker。
Yeah, I like Flickr. Otherwise, I'll have to come back here.
Yeah, I will find a clicker.
So, how's everybody feeling today? Yeah? Good? Who's from San Francisco? What? Alright, who's from this area, like, of the world? Who's not from this area of the world? Who came from LA or somewhere else? Alright, cool. So, everybody's local. Where are you from? Nicaragua. Okay, like originally, right? Or you flew in today for this meeting? Alright, I was about to like.
Actually, Kurt is doing here for this meetup.
Well, I flew in here partially for this meetup. I got a conference. Who knows Udemy? Yeah, so they got a conference for instructors on the weekend in San Francisco, and I'll be attending that. Plus, of course, very excited to present.
可以用吗？
I presented at a meetup for a long time, like until July this year. I presented in San Diego. Oh, has
等
did
一下
anybody
吧，你
see
把拿过
the
去吧，
San
先
Diego
拿过去，
presentation?
先直播，就
Why?
是直
You
播，
saw it
等一下我
online?
开始。
Okay. Well, good news. This one is different. This one, you guys are seeing this for the first time. I just made it. Yeah, and everybody online. There's 100 and something. How many people?
Like 150 people online streaming, watching the watching the
Okay.
live right now.
All right. Well, while we're setting up, is the clicker there?
Yeah.
Hey. Okay.
Oh,
Hi.
Hey, everybody.
1 second. Sorry.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. So we're all good, set to go. Yeah.
Yeah, you can
Okay, let's
start.
I'll
Yeah.
hand over to your host.
Yeah, thank you so much. So first, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming today. And I know some of you are driving from San Francisco, and including the Curial. So thank you for coming, and welcome to DTalk. And DTalk is a global community lecture series, and initiated by Talking Data and Synced. And the Talking Data is and bringing the high-profile individuals to discuss about data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. And this is the episode 3. For the episode 1 and episode 2, we have the data science from background, talking about fintech. And for the episode 2, we have the Foxconn CEO Terry Gold talking about industrial AI. And in this episode 3, we have Curiel talking about the data science process. And and for Talking Data is China's leading third-party data intelligence solution platform. And with the smart data platform as the core of its data intelligence application ecosystem, Talking Data empower enterprises and help them transform to achieve the data-driven transformation. And Sync is Chinese first media entity reporting on machine learning, artificial intelligence. And today we're so honored to invite Curiel, and he's the founder of the Super Data Science, and also, as everybody knows, he's the top instructor from the Udemy, and he has like more than 550,000 students has taken his course, and with 4.5 stars reviews, and I'm one of his students as well. I took the Data Science A to Z from Udemy, and I think that is one of the best data science course, especially for the new learner. So let's welcome Curiel.
Very honored to be here. Very excited. Hey, everybody on the live stream. This is super cool to be in San Francisco and presenting to you guys. I got a very special presentation, as I mentioned. Just prepared it for you guys for the first. You'll be the first people to ever see it, and we'll be diving into data science process. But just before we start, and so everybody can get comfortable, I wanted to ask who's already done any of our courses from Super Data Science on Udemy or other platforms? Okay, thank you. And to get like an understanding of the audience, who considers themselves just let's like don't be modest. Let's see what levels we have in the audience. Who considers themselves an absolute beginner in data science? Like you're just getting into the field, you just want to know what's going on. Like there's no like it's okay to put your hand up. Every safe environment. Okay, who has already played around with data science? Is quite comfortable, but wants to learn more, but is not yet an expert. It's not like yet wouldn't say that they're experienced. Or experienced, but not to the ultimate level that they want to be. Okay, cool. And who would say they're an expert in data science, and they're here to make fun of me? Okay, cool. So that's good. I think we're all learning, whatever level we're at. It's good to get a good feel for the audience, like who's in the room, because that'll help me tell the slides. But before we start, what I like to do at meetups is actually understand the meaning of the word meetup. Like, why are we here? We're not here just to listen to a presentation. The word meetup means you're here to meet up. So how about we take like 2 or 3 minutes and say hello to the person on your left or the person on your right, introduce yourself, and see what they're up to, where they're working, and why they learn data science. Go. Don't be shy, turn to your right, turn to your left, say hello. Find somebody who doesn't have a partner. Yeah. Right. Gentleman in the purple shirt over there. Yeah.
Yeah, we have an office. Yeah, originally we are from we probably from mine, but sometimes for internal, like, we just have to Did we get the? Yeah, I will. I talked to him. Yeah.
All right, okay, there we go. So, thank you.
Thank you. If you want, I can go and you can continue chatting. See, that's the point of these things, right? Like, you get to meet people, and ultimately networking, especially in a field like data science, is probably one of the best things. What I love about data science is the community is so welcoming, so warm, so supportive. Thank you very much. Just check this. Okay, awesome. And there's like, in other environments, sometimes like, I don't know, they're a bit more cutthroat, and they don't support each other as much. In data science, I've never seen that. You have a question, you go online, who's had this experience? You go online, you ask a question, you get an answer, you get like 50 answers. Who's just asked the question online before about data science? Yeah, so you've got Quora, you've got Stack Overflow, you've got all these other resources where people are willing to help each other. And here, you actually can meet and maybe do a project together, and you support each other in person. This is the best, right? Okay, so moving on to today's presentation. The data science process, a systematic view. We're going to have, this is going to be like the index, so what is actually going to happen today. It's going to be quite long, by the way, and you'll see why. So number one, we're going to have an intro, so you get to know who I am and what we're all about, if you don't know yet. And then we'll talk about the data science process, just quickly an overview of what's coming up after that. Then the main part is deep dive stories, and it's going to be 25 tips that I'm going to share, and it's going to be in the form of stories. You'll see what I mean when we get there. So we're going to make it fun, not one of those. So it's not super. So it's not not absolutely not technical, but it's not super technical. It's somewhere in between, but we're also going to make it fun. Then we're going to have a bonus, so highly recommend sticking around to the end. If you really need to go, you can go, but otherwise we're going to have a bonus, and that also applies to guys watching online. And then we'll have a Q&A with the help of our wonderful host. Okay, so a quick intro. Welcome, everybody. You got to introduce yourselves to each other. And this is me. This is you can see it's not really true. I don't have orange hair, just an orange beard. But that's our designer's interpretation. Funny story is that I can't get rid of the beard now because they're using this image on their website. Okay, so what I like is vegan burritos. Except for today, I tried. Who knows flying falafel in San Francisco? Yeah? Okay, 3-4 people. Amazing. If you're ever in San Francisco, which I assume you sometimes go because you live here, flying falafel, the best. So it's kind of rivals vegan burritos. Next one is rock climbing, and I like also structure. And in terms of structure, kind of a bit of OCD, everything has to be aligned, but it has its benefits. You'll see that today, after leaving this room, you're gonna have the data science process in your head, all 5 steps, everything related to it, super structured. You're never gonna have that question, and you're gonna be able to teach your grandmother about the data science process. All right, just a quick intro about Super Data Science. So this is a company where we teach data science to, as mentioned, 500,000 plus students worldwide. As you saw a couple of people here, about maybe half the audience have already taken some of our courses. You can find them on Udemy, on superdatascience.com, and other platforms. So there's a couple of examples of our courses. Deep learning, what else? Machine learning, computer vision, Tableau. You can teach health in the workplace. Then we also have a conference, Data Science Go, which happens in San Diego in October. So this year is happening in October, and we'll tell you a bit more about that towards the end. Okay, part 1, the data science process, which is also called the data science project lifecycle. I like to keep the energy up. Who's excited about this? Who's not excited? Put your hand. Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Who's excited to finally learn this and have one thing in your life, hopefully more than one thing, but one thing for sure, down pat and never have to worry about it? Say yes. Yes. I didn't hear you. Say yes. 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 Okay, there we go. Let's do this. Okay, so data science lifecycle. This is our diagram. No, it's not. This is a complex diagram from Microsoft, and we're not going to use it. I'm just showing you that there's different interpretations of the data science process, different ways you can represent it, and this is one of them. Too complex. We don't want to try to remember this thing. So here's another one from Dataflare training. I don't have anything against them. I'm sure they're wonderful. when you get to know them and understand them better, but that's not what we're going to be using. A bit too complex as well. Here's one that's a bit better, 5 steps, but ultimately they're not exactly the right steps, well, according to me anyway. So I'm going to, what I'm getting to is that there are many interpretations of the data science process. What you will learn today is my interpretation, the one that I've come up with through my experience teaching and so on. And a lot of our students use that interpretation. It's actually, that's the main structure of a book that I wrote earlier. So you'll see that that's just something to keep in mind. When you're talking to somebody else after this, they might have something else in mind. But yours is the good one, just so you know. Okay, so we're gonna have 5 steps, and right now we're gonna have like identify what these steps are as an introduction to how we're gonna dive into them. And the way we're gonna introduce them is how I discovered them throughout my career. So I never started from the first step actually. Started from the second step. And the second step, surprisingly enough, is actually prepare your data. And you know, who's done data preparation before? Yeah? Okay, you guys know that this is one of the most crucial and fundamental steps of data science. You can't really do data science without data preparation. Then, next step is analyze the data. So once you prepare it, you know, run your machine learning, run other algorithms, and find out the insights from the data. Then visualize the data, and so you can present it to people, so you can actually get those insights and represent them in images, something that people understand, not just numbers. At the end, you present your findings. You gotta convey that information, because if you got a lot of insights and nobody's gonna act on them, then what's really the point of your data science? And finally, the very first one is actually identifying the question. And you'll see why I only found out about it late just now, but that's the way I discovered them for myself. So the first two together, identify the question and prepare the data, take up about 80% of a data science project in terms of time. That's where you're going to spend most of your time. The next two are 20%, and the final is 80% again, right? So if you want to take a photo, please do. I think we'll share the slides. I'm not 100% sure about this when it'll happen, but I see some people taking photos. Anyway, so why 80, 20, 80? Well, it's because after you've done the preparation and then you've done the analysis and visualize, all of a sudden you're like, all right, I'm just going to present it. But actually, it's a lot of work to present to somebody. It's a lot of work to convey the insights. And I call this 80-20-80 rule of Yao, because I discovered it from one of my mentors. Well, at the time, it was my mentor, Yao Tan, who's right now Senior Vice President of Financial Crime and Analytics at DBS Bank. And this is his photo from LinkedIn. I really like the background. It's like the hair didn't fit into the middle one. He put it in, Yao, if you're watching, you know, no, nothing personal. So that's his quote, and it was really cool to find that out. But why I also brought this up is because this is how we're going to structure today's presentation. So this is our data science process. Now you have this. This is how we're going to go through this. Identify the question, prepare the data, analyze the data, visualize the data, present your findings. We're going to have a section devoted to each one of these, and we're going to dive deep into them. And the other thing is, to make it fun, we're actually going to have a story, at least one story, for each one of those. So those are going to be like raw facts and figures. We're going to analyze what somebody went through, what experience they had. And all these stories are actually coming from the Super Data Science podcast. Who listens to the Super Data Science podcast here? Okay, awesome. And so some of these people you'll recognize, you may have heard them already. And if you haven't yet, then at the end I'll show you a slide where you can, in which episode you can find each one of these stories. Okay, so part 2, we're diving deep into the stories. All right, everybody clear so far? Okay, cool. So stage 1, identify the question. We want to understand, you know, like what is actually the problem that the company is pursuing? What do they want to find out? And so the reason why I actually, remember I was showing you how I found out about this late. Do I need the microphone for the live streaming?
It's fine.
Do they need?
Thank you. Yeah.
They can they hear without the microphone?
I checked that.
Yeah.
You're just using microphone by yourself. It's fine.
Like I really don't think I need a microphone for this audience. Huh? Is that okay?
No, it's fine. You're just using a microphone. You don't have to put a microphone.
No. What I mean is, can I just do this? Can I talk like this? Can they hear me there? Okay. Sorry, guys. All right. Just not used to holding it. Anyway, so what they were saying, what's happening here is that why did I find out late about this? Is because I worked at Deloitte when I was starting out into data science. Deloitte is a consulting firm, and what happens there is when you get onto a project, there's already an engagement letter and a scope of the project outlined. So as an analyst or a data scientist, once you're introduced to a project, you already know exactly what you need to do. You don't have to talk to the client. You don't have, that's already done for you. The directors, the partners have done that, and they know exactly what needs to happen. So you get in and you just do from step 2 to step 5. So I never actually thought that step 1 existed. For 2 years I was working at Deloitte, and then later when I left, and then I started like hitting these roadblocks. I was like, why? Like I would start a project, and then all of a sudden the project would change. All of a sudden I would I'd do all this analysis and I would answer the wrong question, and I would spend weeks doing a project, and then I present the findings, but then the internal stakeholder would be like, that's not what we wanted. Even though like the insights are great, that's not what they were after. So identifying the question is an extremely important step. That lays the foundation of everything you do. And our example here is Ruben Kogel. So Ruben was on the podcast quite early. He was on the very first episode, then he was on the 39th episode again as well. And what he shared in his second appearance on the podcast, he's the director of data science at Visco. It's like an app that, does anybody use Visco? Yeah, it's an app for photos, right? So you can edit your photos, add filters and so on. They have like millions of users per day. It's like a huge, huge app. And so what he does at Visco is like he's the director of data science, and they analyze. So as you can imagine, they have lots of data. They have a ton of data points. They collect every time you click on a photo, they collect data. Every time you use a filter, they collect data. And so one time he had this project where the stakeholders or the shareholders of the company, they wanted to know better how to distinguish people that actually sign up for the premium version of this product. So they have a free subscription. Anybody can like use it for free. But then at some point, people choose to buy it and get additional options and things like that in the product. And so what they wanted to know is like segment or describe, provide some insights to describe the people that actually buy the product. And like one thing you could do is right there, and then you run off and you start creating your project data preparation, analysis, visualization, and then you present. But because Ruben's experienced, the first thing he did is actually went back to the stakeholders and said, hey, actually, what do you want? Like, why do you want this? What's the business problem that you're facing? Like what exactly do I need to show you, or you want a segmentation, but what question are you trying to answer? What's the problem that you're trying to solve? Because, for example, it could be they might be trying to see how their behavior changes, and maybe where they're finding that after people subscribe, their servers are going down in certain areas because people are starting to do more of a certain thing than they were doing before. Or, as it actually did turn out to be, it was a problem that they wanted to see. It was a marketing problem. So they wanted to see what do people who subscribe look like, so they can target those people and then sell to them better. But it could have been something else. It could have been like a services problem. It could have been like, all right, how do we service these people better? What do they want after they subscribe? So there's lots of actual sub-questions that you can ask. And so if this is the audience of millions of people, as you can see, if it was one version of the question, maybe the segmentation would look like this. Another version of the question might have looked like this, right? So every time the answer might be different. So you need to drill down and actually understand really, really well what is the business problem behind the analysis you're about to do. If you don't understand that, then you're wasting your time and other people's time. It's like throwing, like a dart at a dart, whatever it's called, throwing location. And if you might get the bullseye, but you might not, because you just don't know exactly what they want. So we're gonna go through top 5 tips for this part of the process. We've already mentioned a couple of them. Number 1, understand the problem. Go back, ask questions, talk to your stakeholders, spend some time, right? A lot of the time you'll find that your stakeholders, which can be external if you're a consultant in data science, or it might be internal if you are in a company. Who is a consultant in data science or freelancer here? Put your hand up. All right, 1. who is working in a company or wants to work in a company as a data scientist. There you go. So what you'll find is that you still need to treat your internal stakeholders as if they were external. You need to ask them everything, write everything down, and make sure they answer your questions. So they kind of expect that you'll run and jump into the answering the problem right away, but you need to spend like 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 days just digging around in the problem. Number 2, develop your domain knowledge. So domain knowledge is kind of like your industry knowledge. What is going on in this industry? Let's say you're working in pharmaceuticals. Start learning about pharmaceuticals, start learning about the different types of data, different types of tests there are, different types of clients, different types of regulation. The more you know about your domain knowledge, the easier it will be for you to grasp the business problem. And what I like about data science is the skills are extremely transferable. So if you're doing data science in pharmaceuticals today, tomorrow you can go and get a job and do data science at a supply chain or logistics company, like that, very quickly. And I know this because I worked in consulting, that's exactly what happens. One day you're working on, I don't know, like we're doing geospatial analysis for a retail medical facility that wants to do a merger and acquisition. The next day I was working for a railroad trying to optimize their cold delivery supply network. And the skills are transferable, domain knowledge isn't. So that's kind of your weak point, but the good news is that if you spend a weekend reading about your new industry or whatever industry you're in, you already like gotten 50% up to speed. You spend another weekend, you're already 80% up to speed. So you just need to consciously focus on that, and not one way to acquire domain knowledge is to wait for these problems to hit you and then learn the domain knowledge. But if you proactively go and put the work in beforehand, everybody in the business will appreciate it. They'll be like, this guy or this girl, they're so proactive, they already know a lot. They'll come to you with a problem and you'll already be able to talk their language. That is really cool. That is called like going over and above. You want to be a data scientist who's not just crunching numbers, but who goes over and above, and your clients who might be external or internal, you already know half the problems that they might have when they come to you. So develop your domain knowledge, very important. Tip number 3, mine the data or do preliminary data mining. And we'll talk about data visualization for data mining. We'll talk about visual analytics further down. So basically do that. Like when you have the data, even before you start preparing the data, before you start analyzing, before all those steps, you can take your data and throw it into like a drag and drop tool like Tableau. Again, we'll talk about that a bit later. And already get a feel for the data. You know, it might be, like without data prep, it's very dangerous to gain insights. But to get a feel for the data, that's a different story. That's allowed. That's okay. Because data is actually has some secrets in it. And even if you visualize it without doing the data prep and all that other stuff that we're going to talk about, there still has the secrets, but at least you can see it, right? We are not machines. We cannot understand the numbers, but we can understand pictures. Put it into pictures, or do some other data mining, like draw some distributions with Python or so on. Just like understand, is it a normal distribution or is it a uniform distribution, or is it a Frechet distribution? What's going on there? Just get a feel for your data even while you're scoping out the project. As early as you can, it'll give you advantages. Don't rely on it too much, but get a sense for the data. Tip number 4, inform your stakeholders in writing. This is very important. When you are about to start a project, when you've done those first 3 tips and a couple of steps already, and you know what you're going to be answering, put it in writing, send an email, get a confirmation. Because if you just talk, and you might be best friends, outside of work, but if you just talk about it, and then you do the project, and then like, this is not what I wanted, how are you going to prove that it is what they want? Or especially if there's 5 of them in the boardroom telling that that's not what they wanted. Or if during the project, all of a sudden they start saying, this happens all the time, they start saying, I want this done, I want this additional thing, I want that other thing, I don't want this anymore. No, like if you identify at the very start what they want, you spent the time, you spent 3 or 5 days identifying it, put it in writing, and they've confirmed it, that's it. If they want something else, they're right, but then that's a new project. Very important, otherwise you will get yourself into a trap. Tip number 5, know how to say no. Like that brings us to tip number 5. So when people want to expand the scope, that's called scope creep. In consulting, it's a proper term, scope creep. It's creeping on you. You say no, because in consulting, they would have to pay more money. Since you're an internal stakeholder, you're an internal data scientist, they don't have to pay you more money, so it's easy for them to ask for more. But ultimately, you're spending more time, and you already agreed to a certain deadline. So learn how to say no, and this also applies to other projects. Like a common mistake that I've done, and maybe some of you have done if you haven't done it yet, if you're just getting into data science, you will do it, trust me, is saying yes to everything. Because once you, like, especially if your company is just starting a data science department, what you'll notice is that once you start, like, do first project, second, third project, and you're, like, bringing value to the business, they start talking about it, especially in a bigger business. They'll start talking, telling each other, hey, you know, like, I had this problem, but our data scientists reduced the amount of time we spend on this from 100 hours to 1 hour per week. It's really cool. And people will start coming to you. You'll have like an inflow. If you want to be a successful data scientist, what you'll have an inflow of people requesting your work, your attention. If you're an external consultant, the same thing. You'll have a lot of clients. Very hard to say no. Like often we find ourselves in life. You need to prioritize. You need to understand what are the projects that will bring the most business value to the business. Ultimately, if you're a data scientist in a business, not in a like a non-for-profit or just as a hobby, but in a business. What businesses care about, and we live in a capitalistic world, what businesses care about is their bottom line. Whatever you do should add value to their bottom line. And even if it's increasing their reputation, at the end of the day, it's helping the business survive, it's adding value to their bottom line. So that's how you prioritize projects. You find the ones that add the most value to the bottom line. If you don't know how to do that, talk to your manager, they'll help you. But don't say yes to everything. You know, it's better to do one thing really well than 10 things and screw up 7 of them. That's not going to help your reputation or the business either. So know how to say no is actually better for everyone. All right, so top 5 tips for stage 1. Understand the problem, develop your domain knowledge, mine the data, do preliminary data mining, whether it's visual analytics or other ways, inform your stakeholders in writing, and know how to say no. Very important. Those are just 5 tips, and I'm sure like there's definitely more, but like that's the most important ones. All right, moving on. Stage 2, prepare the data. What happens here? This is the biggest stage by far. Out of them all, the first 3 remember take 80%. So the second stage is like, if your project is, I don't know, like 5 weeks, then this first stage might take up to a week. The second stage is going to take you 3 weeks, just preparing the data. That's how long it takes. And then the last week, you're just going to have fun. All right, so our rock star today is Ulf Morris, Finance Director of Ubisoft. Who knows Ubisoft? All right, okay, who knows like Assassin's Creed? Who's heard that? All right, so Ubisoft is the company that makes computer games like Assassin's Creed and others. So he was on the podcast also pretty early on. Like I have the episode numbers at the end. What Ulf shared, he shared quite a few, actually 2 times about data preparation or like data type of projects. But the one that really stuck with me is a project that he did before Ubisoft. He was in a consulting firm, and it's like data science is really fun, guys. Like you can have so many different areas where you can use data science. So their consulting firm, it was like back in the day when the term data science didn't exist. But what they were doing is they were advising a merger and acquisition, where a merger and acquisition is like when one company buys another. So one company was about to buy another company without mentioning any names. I don't even know the names. He didn't mention them, which is rightful. One company was about to buy another company, and so there was another consulting firm that went in to do the valuation. So one consulting firm does the valuation, and they say, all right, company A is buying company B. We need to value company B. Company B might say that we're worth $100 million, or euros in this case. But then company A hires consultants to go in and do the valuation, and they do the valuation, and it turns out that actually company B is worth 42 million euros. And that was the case. They were worth 42 million euros according to these consultants. But then another consulting firm has to come in and do the due diligence on that valuation to make sure that there's no shady business, right? So Ulf was in that company Z, the last one, that comes in to check the valuation. So they come in, they're like, all right, so 42 million euros, we need to check the financials, we need to check everything to make sure that the numbers add up, that, it's mathematics. You just do the discounted cash flow value for the next couple of years and, look at assets, look at other things to make sure that everything works. But the thing is that everybody was already happy with the valuation. Company A was happy, it was a big company. Company B was happy with 42 million euros. And the consultants did their job. Everybody was happy. They just wanted to get this thing along. And so instead of 6 months, so these are quite lengthy things. Instead of having 6 months, Ulf's company only received 3 months to do the assessment of the valuation. Instead of having like 5 or 6 people on the team, they only had 2. It was Ulf and his boss, or his manager. So there was only 2 people on the team. And worst come, this is where data preparation comes in. The worst part is that company B, when Ulf and his manager asked for the data, what company B did is they printed everything out. Yeah, that's what and they gave him like this huge stack of all the financials for the past 7 years. Go, you got the data technically, and like even in 3 months they would have had no time, especially back in the day when you didn't have those scanners that scan everything all the time. They wouldn't have time to scan it, OCR it, do the character recognition and analyze, and they wouldn't be able to analyze it. It's like a dead-end project. And so what Ulf did is so many companies involved here. So basically, whenever they went to company A, company B for the actual data on a floppy drive. You remember those things, floppy drives? Yeah. Whenever they went to company B for a floppy drive of the data, the company B were like, no, like we already gave you the data. And wherever they went to in the business, they were already instructed not to help this consulting firm because they just wanted to push the deal ahead. So what Ulf did is he went to the company. This is like a fifth company that was managing company B's ERP system. So enterprise resource planning, or the customer, the databases basically weren't internal to company B. Not many companies could afford internal databases, or cloud didn't even exist at the time. They were external at a supplier. So they would, Ulf went to that company and said, hey, look, we're doing this due diligence and we have the right to inspect any kind of assets. And as he correctly guessed, though that company hadn't been instructed to ignore them and to make their life harder. And so what he did is like he talked to them quite nicely and kind of challenged the database administrator. Can't you guys do better than just send us paperwork? He's like, yes, of course we can. And he like put it onto 3 flash drives, 2 floppy disks for him, and he gave it to him. And that's what data preparation is about. Like understanding where you can get data. It's a very different example to what we have now, but still, the point stands. Where can you get the data? How are you going to prepare? Are you going to scan those files, or are you going to actually go and do something about it? So they analyzed it, and they did a full assessment, and the company value actually wasn't 42 million, was 2 million euros. So they took it down by 40 million euros, and that's what company A bought the company B for. Just a little bit of data prep makes that much of a difference, right? Impressive story. Now we'll force it to yourself. Data sources. Speaking of, where can your data reside these days? Not on floppy drives, but let's have a look. So data sources these days could be a server, like a database, right? SQL server. What else do we have? PostgreSQL, another type of SQL server. Oracle SQL, another type of SQL server. MySQL, another type of SQL server. SQL servers are very popular, and that's your standard structured type of database with tables. And actually, I like this website quite a bit. It's called dbengines.com. If you look at it ranks the database engines by popularity and by usage. And if you look at top 5, and Oracle, MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, Postgre, and MongoDB. We'll touch on MongoDB just now. As you can see, these ones are all relational DBMS, database management systems. MongoDB is a document store. We'll talk about that in a second. But who knows any one type of SQL? Who's worked with SQL in any sort of way? All right, cool. Who knows 2 types of SQL? Who knows 3 types of SQL? The thing is, you can keep your hand up. They're all the same. So, my recommendation is learn 2, learn 1, then learn the second one, and then you can pretty much handle any one of them very quickly. The best one, if you're because a lot of you you want to progress your careers, the best one to start with, in my opinion, is Microsoft SQL Server, because even though it's a Microsoft product, they put in a lot of work to build a community around it, so that whenever you ask a question, you get an answer, and there's a lot of experts that are paid by Microsoft floating around the internet answering questions. That's how they promote this product. Very cool. Most of them have free options that you can download and install. The next one is probably PostgreSQL. It's very good as well because it is a tool that startups use, that a lot of startups have opted into because it's completely freeware. It's open source project. I'm not sure it's open source, but it's free for sure. So, another thing I really like. I love this part. Who knows this guy? Put your hand up. All right. Okay, so a bit of insight. Larry Elliott is the CEO of Oracle, and he's actually you don't know these things until you randomly stumble upon them. 10th richest person in the world with $58.5 billion. He was like the 6th a few years ago. This is according to this year. You never know. This guy's into yachts and racing and stuff like that. But yeah, founder of Oracle. And this also shows why is Oracle number one? Not because, in my opinion, others might think differently, but it's not because they're the best database management system, but because they're so entrenched with large organizations. They, like a lot of these companies that are like massive beasts, they adopted Oracle early, and now it's very hard for them to move to something else. It's very hard to move to Postgre or whatever else, MongoDB, whatever might be better. They can't move away, and they just continue using Oracle and paying their fees. And that's why you will, a lot of the time when you go to an organization, you'll find they're working for Oracle. But it is harder to learn because they don't have such an active community online. Moving on, adding MongoDB here, it's a non-relational database management system. I'll comment on that in a second. Also, your data might be in a CSV file, might be an Excel file, might be in a JSON file. It's a JavaScript object. Who remembers the N? What the N for? Object notation. Thank you. So JavaScript object notation. It's like when you see like these hierarchical structure inside a file. When you see one, you'll know it. Well, basically, MongoDB uses JSON format, so it's a good thing to know as well. It's a bit tough to get your head around at the start, but good to know. You can put it in your resume. I know JSON. Hadoop, getting more popular, like big data systems. Notepad++, it's more kind of like you use to open the data source or to analyze data. Like when you can't open it with a CSV or Excel file, you use Notepad++ or EditPad Lite or EditPad Pro. Those things like have unlimited, like Excel has a limited number of rows. These don't. It might be online, so Twitter, websites. We do some web scraping. Like a lot of more and more data scientists are doing unstructured analytics, sentiment analysis of who's saying what on Twitter, and maybe you need some data from a website that they're not just readily giving to you as a CSV. You just scrape it. You will use Python for that most likely. They have good libraries for that. So that's where your data might be sitting. There's other places, but that's generally what it is. So what is the data preparation process? And I was fortunate enough that even though at Deloitte I didn't learn about I didn't learn about the preparing or identifying the question phase. I did learn a lot about data preparation, especially as a young analyst. They really train you up. It's like it becomes something like how in the army they train you up to like shoot or like react. Same thing. You show me like a dirty data, like instantly these reactions kick in. Like I have nightmares and that PTSD. So ETL process, what is it? It's extract, transform, load. Okay. So what does that mean? Extract is you need to go and find the data where it's residing and you get it out of there. It's usually, as a data scientist, like sometimes you will encounter situations where you're analyzing the data where it is, or you might need to create something that goes into production and that sits and like works on constantly in the business. But still, even in that case, you would extract the data, do the analysis, prepare your algorithm, and then deploy it. So it's always a good idea to extract the data. It's very risky to work with the data in its original source. You screw up one row, that might cost the business millions or billions of dollars. Right? You don't want to do that. It's better to have a copy and work with that. So you want to extract. Plus, that allows you to transform the data, allows you to work with it, mesh it, analyze, look for certain things, look for anomalies, look for outliers, look for missing data, corrupt data, incorrect data. There's 3 different categories. Missing data, somebody forgot to enter it. Incorrect data, somebody entered the wrong thing. They entered the date into the name column or something like that. Or they entered a completely incorrect number. And you want to also miss for corrupt data that was entered correctly but got lost in the process of some transformation, some moving around, or physical damage, something else happened. And then you want to load it, usually into another server. That's why SQL and other different types of SQL are important to know, because not only it allows you to extract data for most organizations these days, they store their data in SQL, but also it allows you to load it back in for analysis that is convenient for you into a relational database management software. And for the transform, you're going to use probably one of these. Well, that's my experience. There's other tools you could be using, but Microsoft SQL Server Integration Services. So not just the SQL DBMS, the database itself. But Microsoft has a wonderful tool called SSIS, and that allows you to load data into a database, and it's really cool. It runs in the background. It's like this. It gives you this visual representation. Really like it. Who's done the data science A to Z course? All right, you remember that from there? Yeah? Yes. It was fun, right? That's one of my favorite parts. Tedious, but fun. This whole place, you see how much time I'm spending on these slides? Because that's how much time you're going to be spending in life on this thing, on data preparation. Python R can also help you a lot with data preparation. Some people are, skip the SQL whole phase and just Python R. That's also an approach. So is this clear? If you have questions, we'll have a Q&A at the end. So just if something's unclear, remember to write down, because there's going to be a lot more other stuff. All right, so here's an example. This is a real example, not made up. Sometimes I might make up an example for the course, just make up a business case because I can't use a business case from past experience, or make something similar. But this is an actual example. Adlan and I downloaded it. Who knows Adlan better? Oh, okay, you'll get to see him just now. My co-instructor on machine learning course. We downloaded the dataset. This is Google stock prices from Yahoo Finance. Direct download, CSV file, you click the button up at the top, download, and what you can see here is on row 504, try find that. You only usually find that once you see the problems happening. That's what data preparation is for. On row 504, on 26 April 2015, which looks reasonable, 24, 26, 27, it's not like a duplicate, bam, what is that? These other prices are stock, bid, ask, bid, volume, and so on. What is that? And it's a stock split, and we looked it up, and apparently that was a Sunday, so there wasn't actually a stock price. If you look at it carefully, you'll see that there's only 5 per week. 17th jumps to 20th, 1st of May jumps to 4th of May. So this was a stock split, which happened on a Sunday, and I think that's, Google did one of its usual things that it became Alphabet or something like that, or they did a merger. I don't know, maybe it was an Alphabet thing, I don't really remember which year that happened. But basically it was a stock split, and they recorded it there, and the person uploading the data to Yahoo Finance didn't clear it out, and that affected the analysis. So that's one of the examples of corrupt data, right? It's not incorrect, somebody didn't put it correctly on purpose or by accident. But it's just it could be incorrect as well. You could classify one as or the other. So yeah, that's going to inevitably affect your analysis. So you need to find things like this and remove them, or know how to deal with them. And we're going to have an example just now as well. So just to show you that this happens in life a lot. Top 5 tips. Here we go. Tip number 1. Run QA after extraction. QA is not questions and answers, it's quality assurance. And in Deloitte, in consulting, it was drilled in. You actually run them in pairs. You do the, what's it called? Extraction, and then you, for instance, in your extraction script, usually you write a script for extraction, or whatever way you extract it. You have to check, okay, how many rows do I have after extraction? How many rows did I have in the original dataset? First thing you check, right? If the number of rows doesn't match up, something is wrong. Very easy thing to do. Another thing you do in your QA is you check, if there was something like, if something like this happened, this was actually quite, lucky and unlucky in a way, because this row didn't ship. You see these empty commas? The tool introduced those empty commas. But sometimes what happens, those empty commas don't get introduced, so that next row gets moved here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values from that row get moved here. Then from that row get moved here, and so on. It screws up the whole file going down. So a quick way to check for stuff like this, won't work every time, wouldn't work here, but in other cases it will work, is you check not the top rows. A lot of people just look at the top rows, are they fine? Look at the bottom rows. Look at the bottom 5 rows. Are they fine? Are they in the right columns? That's quality assurance. So of course look at the top 5 rows as well, just in case. But also scroll through. If it's not a huge file, just take the file and just scroll through it and look at visually things. Then you can do so after extraction. That's kind of those are just the main things. Then decide on treatment for outliers. So sometimes you'll have outliers which are incorrect. For instance, you have 100 stores you're analyzing for a company, and all of them did on average, I don't know, 1,000 sales of a certain product, maybe it's a car or something like that, or maybe 100,000 products they sold, notepads or something. But then one of these stores sold 10 million products. So that could be incorrect, right? Then you have to fix it, get the real data, or remove that row. Or that outlier could actually be correct. They might be doing a really good job, but you might still need to get rid of them because it's going to affect your analysis. You need to decide that for yourself. Do you want to report on these 100 stores, what is going on in general? Then maybe you don't remove it, then you keep use the median instead of the average. But you keep that in mind. But sometimes you'll actually remove the outlier because it's going to be skewing your aggregates, and then in your final report you say this outlier was removed. Reformat dates, this is my recommended formatting for dates. This is the one we use in consulting, because you know how in America you have MM, DD, YYY, which I still don't know how you guys do that. Other countries in the world you use DD, MM, YY, which is like logical. But if you do it this way, every computer system will understand. Excel, Microsoft SQL, and there will never be a problem. No computer system will think that that is the date, that is the month. Never. It's always going to be correct. So that's best way to reformat the dates into that. Save your ETL script. If you're writing this in Python or Microsoft SQL Server or SSIS, make sure to save the script so you can analyze it later or rerun it later, or somebody can QA it for you later. You gotta save it. You gotta have a auditable trace. And finally, run QA after the load. We ran the QA before the load, then you manipulated the data, run the QA, count the rows again. If you removed 5, there should be 5 less, not 10 less, not 7 less. Then after the load, you can also do things like, now that the data is clean and it's already loaded, you can run a few distributions. Run a distribution and look at how for instance, you're working with customers, look at the age distribution. If unless there's certain product SKUs, the age distribution is usually a normal distribution. Or maybe you know that a good QA, one of my favorite QA checks, is if you have phone numbers, you take the last digit, not the first, but the last digit of the phone number, and you run a distribution of that. And what should it be? It should be uniform, right? Like it shouldn't be like more 7s and 3s. It should be a uniform distribution. If you got a problem there, something's wrong with the data set. Why are there more people with their phone number ending in a 7? Or like take a random letter in a surname. It should be distributed similarly to how letters are generally distributed in surnames. You can look these things up. There's other distributions you can check. But again, check the last rows, check all these other things that we talked about after the extraction. All right, so top tips for stage 2. Run QA after extraction, decide on treatment for outliers, reformat dates, save your ETL script, and run QA after the load. So those are our top 5 tips. And right now we're gonna have a little exercise with this part, run QA quality assurance after extraction. So one of the things we talked about in quality assurance is checking for missing values. Let's have a look. So here's a data set. So you're doing a project, you're a data scientist, officially, congratulations. Meetup hasn't even ended, you're already a data scientist. You're doing a project for what they call venture capital fund that are choosing from 1,000 startups, and they want to invest into a few of them, and they want to pick out the best ones. And so later on, this is from one of our courses, from I think the Tableau Advanced course. So later on, you'll actually do analysis. This is the data preparation phase. And you have this problem. You have some of these fields are empty. What are you going to do about it, right? So let's start from the top. Actually, we'll go left to right. So industry. So you see these companies, City, Ace, and K Electronics. They don't have an industry. So what are you going to do? Any ideas? Like, feel free to put your hand up. Yes. Google it, correct, One way you can do is always just remove the row. But if you can Google it and replace it, and especially if it's 1,000, it's not 10 million, you know that there's going to be a limited number. You can already see that they're not coming out that all. You Google it, or you ask, somebody else to Google it. If there's a lot. Or you do some web scraping. Next one, inception. Well, in this case again, right? Google it. That's the date when they started. Usually you can find it. Sometimes you can't find that information. In that case, remove it, right? Because, for instance, inception, you cannot really, you'll see one of the tools we have later on, is replace with the industry average. You can't really replace inception with an industry average because even though it's a numerical variable, it's not actually, well, even though it's a number, it's actually a categorical variable. It's not something you can add up. You can't add up years and take averages of years. It doesn't make sense. Right? So not all numbers can be added up and averaged out and things like that. So in this case, you either Google or remove the row. Employees. So that's missing. That's a bit harder to Google, right? It's going to tell you a big number if it's a big company, or it might not tell you if it's a small company. but even the big numbers are not going to be exactly accurate. So what you could do here, you either Google it, or if it's available, but if it's not available, what you could do is you could take the average of the whole thing. Take the average of the whole column and put it in there. That's already good enough, right? Especially if in your analysis you're averaging things out. But a better way is, you see the industry column, filter by that industry, what is it, retail, and take the average for retail. Or even better, don't take the average, take the median, because you're probably going to have outliers. You're going to have like something like eBay with tons of employees, and you can see here these are mostly startups. So take the median, because the median is not affected by outliers, or not as much. And so then you put in the median in there, and then you have already something to work with. That's one of the techniques. State, you can Google that. Okay, next one, revenue, expenses, profit, and percentage growth as compared to last year. Who wants to do this one? What would you do in that case? Yes, please. Sorry? Remove that row, okay? Yes, please. Sorry? Companies that are annual report. Yeah, some companies publish annual reports. Anybody else? Yes? Yeah, take the industry average, right? Just like we talked about. Yeah, so there's a couple of options. Choose whichever one you want. And same thing for growth, percentage growth, right? Yes? Check Bloomberg, another way. There we go. What about this one? This one's interesting. Expenses. When expenses is just missing, what would you do? Huh? Calculate it, right? Everybody knows the formula? Revenue minus expenses equals profit, right? So you just, expenses is profit minus revenue. That's, is revenue minus profit. That's your expense. And this actually leads us back to this one. If you're doing industry average for this one, you do the industry average, you can't do the industry average 3 times because it won't add up, right? So you got to do industry average twice for revenue and expenses, for example, and then the profit you calculate. So this is all part of data preparation. This is very simple data preparation, visual, you don't need genius scripts, but this is what goes into data preparation. This type of thinking, monotonous, and the more you do it, the more experience you gain. You know these industry average things now, the mean, the median situation, distributions a little bit, there's lots more tricks. And that's something that, again, you can upskill yourself on, learn, and also through experience you gain. But very important. And actually, it's good to keep this knowledge stored somewhere so you can always reference it for yourself. Because as you move on to new projects, you might forget things that happened before. All right, so that's our little thing done. And then once you're done with data preparation, then you do the analysis, and it's going to be fun. And it's actually going to give you meaningful insights, not random insights. Okay. Stage 3, analyze the data. So we did the part that takes 80%. Now we're on to 20%. How's everybody going? Good? No? Yeah? Okay, cool. Analyze the data. What happens here? Okay, Adlan. So for those of you who don't know, Adlan is a co-instructor on a lot of our courses, or my course, well, our courses together, and he's also my business partner. And he's from France, lives in Portugal, and right now he's in Colombia. Just like we were in Colombia like a week ago, because a lot of people from computer science actually are in Colombia, and we're just like having a chill out time there. And then he decided to stay, and then he like, I'm gonna do backpacking. And he brought a suitcase, and like, okay. And then he just, and then he found this really lovely village with a beautiful view, and he's just sitting there and just like, doing some work, but like in this amazing village. We just keep sending these photos, and I'm like, dude, come on, that's so cool. Anyway, he loves the nature. So Adlan, this one's going to be a bit different. Adlan is a machine learning expert. He used to work at Google. Before that at Canal Plus, doing some machine learning algorithms. I learned a lot of machine learning from him. I'm not an expert in machine learning. I know a couple of things. He's really good at it. And what we're going to do is, okay. Who here has ever procrastinated? Come on, everybody, right? Everybody. Who hasn't? Everybody has. So this is true story. I procrastinated with these slides. So the next couple of slides are just going to be screenshots from the curriculum of our machine learning course instead of like really prettied out slides. Don't think that I'm trying to sell it to you or get you to sign up. It's just the easiest thing that was today, like 2 hours ago for me to do. And I'll show you some other courses at the end as well, so you don't feel that I'm biasing you towards our course. but it will help you understand what machine learning is all about. All right, so machine learning has lots of branches. In this presentation, this course has started out with 7 branches, and we're actually going to talk about, I think, 9 branches, or mention 9 branches. This is available online. I'll show you the link, so it's like you can see it there. Well, data preprocessing, we kind of talked about that a bit already. In machine learning, you have to do a few more other things apart from just data cleaning. But here we got regression. Regression is one of the branches of machine learning. Who's already done some machine learning? Put your hand up. Yeah? Okay, cool. Who's absolutely new to machine learning? First time you're learning about it. Okay, cool. So machine learning is, you don't have to do machine learning for data science. Like in these 5 steps of the data science process, there are steps that you can skip for your career. You can, and we can talk about that towards the end. We'll have that slide again. So for instance, you don't have to do machine learning. If you hate programming, because machine learning is usually Python and R, if you hate programming or you're completely not interested in it, you can skip it and you can just like focus your career on, you know, identifying problem, data preparation, then visualization and presentation. And we'll have an example of that just now as well. But if you're not skipping that step, then machine learning is kind of like the new data science. I wouldn't just make that statement. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of, because you can definitely have a career in data science about that. But in terms of popularity, it's definitely taking over. And before data science was the sexiest profession of the 21st century, now machine learning is the most satisfying. Like people doing machine learning, they're the most satisfied in their jobs. KD Nuggets ran a survey on that just recently. And the salaries are extremely high for machine learning experts, like as well as data scientists. Anyway, so regression is one of the branches, and we all kind of like seen in high school, simple linear regression, multiple as well, there's polynomial, support. We're not going to go into each one of this, but they are, as you can see, different types of regression. Support vector regression, decision tree, random forest, evaluating, you know, regression models performance. So what this stands to say is that there are lots of different ways you can analyze your data. Pick the one that you like. Have a couple in your arsenal. Don't have to know them all. You know, kind of learn about all of them just to know which ones work for you, which ones are the most popular ones. But then, you know, pick the ones that work the best, the ones that you like. Classification is when you already have classes, and then you want to add new data points or investigate data points and add them to the classes. For instance, you can have a class of people who did buy, who didn't buy a product, and then you want to classify them based on other attributes. That's, you know, like age, revenue, demographics, location, and so on. You want to classify, are they going to buy in the future, or are they not going to buy? Right? Based on your previously known data, you know who bought, who didn't. Now you want to like do prediction. So that's classification. Clustering is similar, but you don't know. You don't know the classes already. You want to come up with classes. That's called clustering. There's 2 types. There's more actually, but the ones that we focus on are 2. Association rule learning. That's kind of like understanding if somebody already did like, you know, shopping baskets, how they add more stuff into your basket, recommend stuff. That's association rule. So Amazon probably uses one of these. Not sure. Reinforcement learning, really fun thing. I love reinforcement learning. There's 2 here. It's in my view, it's the killer of the A/B test, because you can, like, I'm not going to go into detail now, but you can do a lot of things with reinforcement learning, real time. Reinforcement learning is kind of like probably that's kind of the basis of AI, of artificial intelligence. So you know this reinforcement learning, it's easier to jump into robots and things like that. Natural language processing, that can be from audio, that can be from text, you know, sentiment analysis and things like that. Deep learning, that's, who's heard of deep learning? Okay, that's the neural network. When you reconstruct the human brain to kind of reconstruct the human brain, similar concept for it to learn on its own. So you don't have to give it parameters, it'll learn through observation. Dimensionality reduction, not going to go into detail on that now. And model selection boosting, so that you got XGBoost, very powerful way of boosting models. Or like picking models and creating models. Anyway, so that's just to show you the world of machine learning is huge. If you thought the world of data science is huge, the world of machine learning is like enormous. Who's heard of Udemy? They're here in San Francisco. Yeah? A lot of you have already done some of the courses on Udemy. If you Google machine learning on Udemy, you'll find 3,463 courses on machine learning. Ours is this one at the top, but the point is you can just click on it and look at the structure. You don't have to buy it. You can just go and like pick out those specific topics that you want to learn, and you can learn from, you know, these other courses are also great by Jose Portilla and Frank Kang. You know, like I've met Jose in person. I've met Frank with great courses as well. or you can just go find YouTube videos, online videos, and just learn that specific topic that you want. But basically what I'm saying is that in our course, we created this glossary of machine learning, which you can always reference even without taking the course, just to understand, okay, what's the next thing for me? What's the next thing for me? And so on. So that's Udemy, that's machine learning. Top 5 tips. Okay, number 1, focus on intuition. This is one of my favorite tip about data science and machine learning. Machine learning might sound scary. Who felt a little scared looking at those slides? Don't be afraid to put your hand up. Like, they scare the Jesus out of me. Probably not the right saying, but anyway, like, machine learning, super complex. So if you're scared, props too. But focus on intuition. Who knows in a car? Who knows? Tell me, like, who knows here the difference between a crankshaft and a camshaft in a car? Put your hand up. Okay. Who knows how to drive a car? Put your hand up. You see the difference, right? You don't need to know the difference between a crankshaft and a camshaft and all these other things to be able to drive a car. All you need to know is, all right, how do I put the petrol in? Where is the seat belt? And what's the gas, what's the brake, and how do you turn the steering wheel? That's all you need to know, more or less. And so basically, that's the intuition, in my view, of how to drive a car. Like, your body already tells you, after some experience, you already know what to press, when to start braking. You know how to park the car after, in my case, you bumped a few other cars. You learn, reinforcement learning. But anyway. So that's how the intuition and the practical applications. You actually drive the car, you know how to get from A to B. Same thing with machine learning. Who said you need to know the mathematics behind machine learning? Like, I don't get these people who try to teach. Like, if you're a researcher, I get it. If you're doing a PhD, or if you want to create new machine learning algorithms, or if you're doing your master's degree or something like that, you probably need to go through the pain of learning this stuff. But if you're just using machine learning, why do you need to know the mathematics behind it? There's no point in it. Like, seriously, you might, if you're interested and curious, you might go in and open your car and understand how the engine works, or where the timing belt is, and what a crankshaft is, whatever. But you don't really need it. Same thing with machine learning. You just need to know the intuition behind things. What does it actually do? What is the Bayesian? What is Bayesian inference, and why is it different to the normal probabilistic approaches? It takes you like 20 minutes to learn that. And then you just practice, like with a car driving. You know the intuition, you know where to put petrol. Now you just practice driving and practice the machine learning algorithms. You do 2, 3, 5 times, and you got Bayesian classification mastered pretty well. You can go and apply it. And at the end of the day, what do you want? Do you want to create a new machine learning algorithm, or do you want to add value to a business and have fun with it? I think it's the second, the latter, right? Or 90% of the case, the latter. So don't be afraid of machine learning. It's a fancy word. The algorithms have fancy names. But ultimately, if you understand the intuition, that's what we focus on. I very rarely go into the mathematics in our courses, and people who've done our courses will confirm this, right? You see a lot of nodding heads. I rarely go into the mathematics. I focus on intuition, Advan focus on the practical stuff, and that's how we create our courses, because that's all we believe that you need to be successful. Tip number 2: consider ensemble methods. Ensemble methods are when you have several algorithms working together. For instance, you might have one decision tree. Who knows what a decision tree is? Cool. So a decision tree, that whole thing, that's one algorithm used in machine learning. But it might be good in some cases, but overall it's not going that well. It's a very simple type of classification method. But what you could do is you could have 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 decision trees working at the same time with slightly different parameters. Or actually, it can be the same parameter, but they were the same decision tree, but they were trained on different subsets of the data. And then you end up with 1,000 decision trees working together, and you get them to vote, like a democracy of trees. It's called a random forest. Literally, that's the name of the algorithm. Random forest, and basically the outcome that gets the majority vote is the correct outcome. And so in that case, you benefit from more stability in your algorithm. So consider ensemble methods, and you can actually mix in algorithms. And you can do a decision tree, a different algorithm, take 4 different algorithms, or 40 or 100 of each, but then mix them up, and then get your answer. That's an ensemble method. Those are very powerful. Learn R and Python, or Python and R. Some people focus on one. Who's a fan of Python? Who's a fan of R? See, I know who's a fan of both. Good, everybody should become a fan of both. You better for your resume, better for your skills, better for your overall view, and also better for understanding the intuition behind the algorithms. If you understand in Python and then you do it again in R, it's a bit different. You know, the code's a bit different, and you dig deeper, and you're actually, and you know, all of this whole presentation is assuming you're passionate about data science. If you're passionate about this, you're gonna have fun understanding the details. It might be hard at the start. The learning curve might be steep, but once you get it, you're gonna have a lot more fun if you know both, or learn both at least. Play around with deep learning and artificial intelligence. You know, that's where the whole world's kind of going. You want to be there, right? If everybody's going that way, you want to be there first. So highly recommend checking those out. And have fun. Don't just do it and, you know, like hate it. If you're hating it, you choose a different algorithm. You should be having fun. Ultimately, what does Warren Buffett say? That he had a billionaire, right? It's an investor and helps people and things like that. But he says that he hasn't worked a day in his life because he doesn't consider it work when he's having fun, right? That's what we want for all of you. Everybody should be having fun, not like slaving over it. If you're not having fun, something must be wrong. Okay, top 5 tips for stage 3. Focus on intuition, consider ensemble methods, learn Python and R, play around with deep learning, and have fun. Have lots and lots of fun. Okay, 3, 2, 1, photos taken. Here we go. Stage 4, visualize the data. All right, we're more than halfway. Okay, how about we get up and do a stretch? Yeah, like everybody, get up. Come on. We need the blood flowing, and this one needs some music pumping. Not good at that. All right, stretch up, side. Guys watching online as well. Left, forward. Okay, high five. 3 people around you. Go. All right, come on. We're having a great time. Everybody's learning a lot. Yeah, awesome. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Let's continue. Awesome. Get some energy in there. Number 4, visualize the data. All right, 2 types here. Visual analytics and visualization. I personally like to distinguish between the two. You'll see why just now. Visual analytics. This gentleman over here, his name is Emanuele Carbone. He is in Italy. I think he's in Florence. Very interesting story. We met Emanuele over here when Adlan and I were doing our roadshow last year in summer. We went in July. We went across like 7 or 10 countries in Europe, and I think we had 7 catch-ups with students in different locations. And this was a catch-up in Florence. And Emanuele is there in the middle, and there I learned the story, and then I invited him to the podcast. So Emanuele is he's like, I want to do data science. This sounds like a really cool thing. I want to get into the space. How am I going to do it? And what he did is phenomenal. He actually started, and I'll tell you the details just now, but overall what he did, he started approaching companies in his, so this is for people who want to actually start like a freelance career in data science. He started approaching companies locally, but you can also do that online. You can use something like Upwork, which is an online freelance platform, and you can do that online. But anyway, he started approaching companies and saying, hey, I can do, data science is pretty cool. You guys have data, you're probably not using it. I can help you, and I'm not going to charge you anything. I'm just going to analyze your data. I'll sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and then I'll give you the insights. Tell me the problem. I'll analyze your data. I'll help you solve it, and then I'll give you the insights. If you think that's valuable, you can pay me. If not, you keep the insights. You don't pay me, and we, part ways. He did that, and now last time I heard, he's working with a local restaurant, helping them do data science, because they loved his insights, and they right away, we want you doing more, and they obviously paying him. Then he's working with one of the, I think it's like a football club or a football betting association or something, one of the biggest ones, like top 5 or something like that in Europe, and they're like Italy based. And then another company. So he's working with 3 companies, a freelance consultant in data science, working his own time and hours. He's very young and super successful in that sense. And this is the catch. It took him 1 year to do that. And the tools that he uses are Excel and Tableau. There's no Python, there's no R, there's no machine learning, nothing else. Everybody knows Excel, and Tableau is a super simple drag and drop visualization tool. You don't even have to learn to code to use Tableau. That is how powerful data science is. When I heard this story, the thing that the instant name that came to mind was golden age of data science. We are in the golden age of data science. Once upon a time, there was a golden age of accounting. when accounting came in and disrupted businesses, and the businesses that had accounting were more successful. You know, there's a golden age for everything, but they've passed. Those professions are now structured, and the education for them is structured, and you have to climb a corporate ladder. Right now in data science, at any age, at any walk of life, you can just grab these two tools. It's simplest for any two tools anyway, for that matter. Let's say these two tools, and you can build yourself a career within a year, probably faster. How cool is that? So speaking of Tableau and data, keep forgetting, visual analytics, right? So Tableau can be used for visualization and visual analytics. We're talking about visual analytics now. So this is from our, who remembers the Data Science A-to-Z course, yeah? So from the Data Science A-to-Z course, this is us just, like, we're analyzing data for some bank, I think, and then we're like, okay, so let's have a look at the distribution, different, what is this? Like, these people who stayed and exited in this one. These are people who stayed in the bank, the blue ones, and the orange ones, the ones that exited over a certain period of time. And the top one is the age. That's the distribution by age. You know, this is, you can see 15 to 20, 20 to 25, 25 to 30. And so you can see that the age distribution is kind of like a normal distribution, which is, which way is it skewed? Right, left or right? Right skewed, correct. Yeah, you look at the tail, not the main part. Right skewed normal distribution, kind of, which you kind of expect. That's especially if you cut it off at 15. And here is, you know, how they leaving. So this already, like, if you do this is taking us back. This part, visual analytics, is taking us back to that identify the question phase. Remember we talked about like seeing your data. So this is allowing you to like have a glance at your data. It's not clean. There might be errors and so on. But it gives you a feel, and you're like, oh, interesting. You know, the age is skewed. You know, the age is skewed there, but more people are leaving here, right? So how come? You know why? And this is in percentage terms. How come more people leaving at this age? Maybe some other bank is hunting them down. They have a better product for insurance, for health or life insurance that we don't have. Or maybe it's opposite. Maybe actually our bank is doing well with the younger generations, younger segments, because we have something that is, you know, maybe we have a no interest loan, and maybe we should target them more, right? So it already gives you ideas. You're like thinking, oh, what could it be, and so on. And when you have those conversations, you haven't even started the project yet. You're still understanding the question. When you have those conversations, all of a sudden you have so much more power in your hands. You have something to already contribute to the conversations with the people you're having. Imagine your CEO of the bank comes and asks you to do this analysis, and before you're like, okay, can you give me 2 days? I'll just need to, you know, poke around and like understand the question a bit better, and then I'll get back to you on the project timelines and scope. And then next day you come back to him and you say this, he'll be like, whoa, already? I didn't even know that. And imagine, and then he's like, if you did that in 1 day, what can you do in like a week or a month? It's like you're gonna have a much more productive conversation. So, and all it is that the data is already saying this. All you're doing, the difference is you're seeing it. Because when it's in a spreadsheet, try seeing this in a spreadsheet. You're gonna shoot yourself, right? Like you can't see that in a spreadsheet. You can see this on like in images. All you're doing is putting it into images. That's why visual analytics is so powerful. And that's why Emanuele is able to create a career out of it, because he has that super powerful advantage that, you know, it's a tiny learning curve to use Tableau or a similar tool. There's Tableau, Power BI, ClickView. Those are the top 3. You know, Microsoft is Power BI is from Microsoft. It's a free tool as well. So very tiny learning curve, a tiny extra step you need to take gives you a huge advantage. You know who knows the 80-20 rule, the Pareto law. You know, like 80% of the causes come from 20%. 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes, right? So you do a little step. You do 20% of the learning, but you get 80% of the results, right? You find those parts, and visual analytics is one of them. Now visualization, different. Same tools, same kind of idea, but a lot of people don't distinguish between. I think distinguishing between them is important, because this one comes at the end of your project. That one came at the start, this one comes at the end. Visualization, Neti Bremer from Netherlands. Amazing freelance consultant in the space of visualization. So here's one of her visuals. This is how in the US, countries actually, cities, bus the homeless people to different cities. I didn't know this was happening. You know, like where's San Francisco, somewhere there. So apparently what you guys do, San Francisco is the biggest one. Oh no, there's a big one here. So people, the government in San Francisco puts all these homeless people on a bus and sends them over to Florida. And Florida, they put them on a bus, send them to San Francisco. or it gets ridiculous. So these are by the year. It's quite intuitive visualization, and it's actually interactive. It was published at The Guardian. I recommend checking it out. It's pretty cool. You scroll down and it adjusts and shows you these buses going and stuff like that. It gets ridiculous. One lady was flown from the U.S. to New Zealand. Why? She had like ancestry there or something like that. Like you guys fly people out overseas and so on. So interesting, like data can tell you interesting stuff, and she visualized this whole thing, and like you can see it gets ridiculous, right? Like why are they shipping them to each other? It's don't know. Anyway, so that's one of her visualizations. Very beautiful. The website, if you want to check it out, is called visualcinnamon.com. Amazing visualizations. You can get a lot of inspiration there. This of course is a much more it's a difficult tool that she's using. I think this one's called D3. It uses JavaScript. It's quite complex to use. But like if you're an artist, I did a bit of D3 work at Deloitte, and I did it we're like having a D3 battle with one of the directors there, like who gets a better visualization. I was just like having so much fun, like when you love something, you learn it anyway. So who knows this visualization? Ooh, okay, good, because you should know this visualization. It's Charles Minard's, one of the oldest visualizations in the world. It's a visualization of how the French army with Napoleon invaded Russia in 1812. All right, so I told you that, right? France is there, Paris is there. Well, that's not Paris, it's the edge of modern Latvia, where they kind of started the campaign. Moscow is there. Just look at it, and without me telling you anything else, and it's all in French, so I know you're not cheating. Without me telling you anything else, can you already kind of guess what happened? What went down? What is this visualization telling you? Yeah, who can kind of see? Who thinks they know what's happening? Okay, what if I tell you? So that's where they started. That's where they went. I'll tell you the story. So Napoleon attacked Moscow. It was very, very cold, and they were all like marching through the snow. It always happens in Russia. Napoleon attacks, it's freezing. Germany, Hitler invades, it's freezing. It's like nature is not letting anybody invade. But anyway, so he got to Moscow. What Moscow did, people in Moscow did, they just left the city. Then he's like, I win. And like, what do I do next? And he's like, okay, let's go back. And he went back. And then like the Russians started like attacking, like not letting him go back fast enough. So the width of this line here is how many troops he had. So over there, he started, I believe it was like, what was it? 400, there we go, yeah. 400,000 troops at the start. And over here, what you have is how cold it got, degrees below zero, -5, -10, -30 in Celsius. So that's a ton lower in Fahrenheit. So freezing. And then you have like different cities, and you have different little comments. And somewhere else here, there was the different dates as well where he went. But anyway, the point is that that's the size of his army dwindling down to 100,000 when he got to Moscow. So that's like a quarter left. And then when he got back, only 10,000 people made it back. So you went from 400,000 to 10,000. And so this visualization not only shows you why this is a popular visualization, there's more. So you've got the direction where they were going, you've got the size of the army, you got how cold it was. You got the different cities where they were, and you got the direction. You got like orange, brown is like right, and black is left. So very telling visualization, and this is a good example. Like there's a good book. What is it called? ggplot is our library. When I remember the book, I'll tell you. Grammar of Graphics. That's what ggplot stands for. ggplot stands for Grammar of Graphics. The Grammar of Graphics talks about this visualization. I highly recommend checking, like reading it, understanding a bit more how to build their visualization. Anyway, so just to show that there are really cool ways you can visualize data apart from just like the simple things that we come to. But nevertheless, even with tools like Tableau, you don't have to go D3, or you don't have to like sit and draw like Tableau. With tools like Tableau, like you can put a visualization like this together in like 20 minutes. And this is not just like 30. This is not just a visualization, it's an interactive visualization. So again, same bank, analyzing their customers, they're in the UK, and now you can click on blue collar workers, the whole thing updates. It shows you the gender split, shows you the number of percent of customers, like what do you call distribution by age, location, everything. You can click on any one of these parts and it's interactive. How cool is that? So this is not just like analytics, visual analytics. This is actually, you're preparing a dashboard for the executive. You remember at the start you did some visual analytics, you got some insights. Now you've done the project and this is your end result. This is what you're presenting to the executive or to the CEO or to the board of directors. And now they can click around and they have this tool that is like now self-service analytics. Now they can go through the tool and find their own insights. Or you don't have to make it interactive. You can just like print something like this out, and there's already a lot of value there, right? So that's part of visualization. Again, with Tableau, you can create this very, very quickly. So good to know. If, like in Excel, this would take a month, probably in R or Python, that would take you a week to create. Wouldn't be as interactive unless you're using something like Shiny. But in Tableau, 30 minutes, you got this thing done. So know your tools and know that you can create amazing visualizations. Top 5 tips. Number 1, keep the problem in mind. Going back to the beginning, don't forget what actual question were you answering. If the question you're answering is not in visualization, then what's the point of your visualization? Keep the problem in mind. Limit the amount of text in your visualizations and in your presentations. And so a lot of these things, especially now going into this part and the last part, you will notice that what you're seeing in my presentation is kind of like I'm applying these tips. Like you can see that throughout my presentation, the amount of text is limited. Like before, when I was doing it, putting it together, I had the tips all on one slide right away, but then I was like, that's too much text. You guys are gonna start reading, right? Even if I put them one, by tip number 3, you're gonna have too much text to read through. I don't want that. Like I want you to focus. The main thing, we'll talk more about this, but I'll say it now already. The main thing is your presentation, unless you're sending off an interactive tool for somebody to work with, well, that's the only case when this is not true. But if you're presenting, your presentation is assisting you, not the other way around. If I was standing here and you were reading my slides or going through my visuals, trying to figure out it, like this would be useless. I want you to focus on me. This is like glance back here. So limit the amount of text. When people start reading text, whether it's a presentation or interactive tool, they're not listening, or they find it too difficult. It must be very quick. They must be able to get the main insight within like glance, like 3-5 seconds. They must be able to understand what's going on. Guide your audience. So with your visuals, make sure they're focusing on the right things, right? Use colors to highlight the insights that are important. Use other things. Keep everything simple. Don't overcomplicate. You might want to create a super cool visual design. Simple is better. Less is more. And finally, add context. Here's an example. Imagine a country that their pollution levels went down, whatever this means, from 17% to 14% year on year, right? So the local news might say, hey, our pollution levels went down by 3%, amazing, we're doing a great job for the environment, right? So that's positive. But now the international news or their neighboring country might say, this country's pollution levels are 14%, but the world average is 12. So it's negative, right? Context gives meaning. Data without context is nothing. So you gotta understand based on the problem that you answer. It doesn't mean manipulate your presentation to suit the needs that you want. No, but understand the question that's been asked and add the right context. Add the context that's gonna either highlight a problem or focus people's attention on the right thing rather than leading them astray. Top 5 tips, stage 4. Keep the problem in mind, limit the amount of text, guide your audience, keep everything simple, and add context. Okay, last one. Present your findings. 80-20-80, remember? The other big part of your work. All right, so here we've got Greg Poppy. He's a friend of mine I think he used to live in LA, then he moved to Miami. I'm not sure exactly. It tells you what kind of friend I am. Don't even know where he lives now. But anyway, he works for risk management. He does risk management for financial services, so when companies lend credit. And one thing that I enjoyed, it was also in the podcast, one thing I enjoyed in sharing was when he creates a model for, those machine learning stuff we're talking about, when he's creating a model, he already keeps his audience in mind at that stage. He's like, okay, I could do a model and I could put something like a logistic regression in there, or like a decision tree, but no, let's say I could put a decision tree in there and it would work, but it'll be hard to explain to my audience because those things in the decision tree, try explaining that. It's like, it just finds these patterns and it's really hard to explain, really hard to interpret. So it's like, it's gonna be hard to interpret, not only to my boss, but they sell these models, or they sell these models as a service to, let's say, car dealerships. The car dealerships punches the numbers in, and they can see, whether they should lend the credit or not, and how much they can lend. Well, it's not going to be useful if the car dealer punches in, annual income of $100,000. It says lend the credit, and then it punches in like $99,000, and it says like don't lend the credit. Like there's no, and then 98,000 like lend the credit again. It's like doesn't make sense. It has to make sense. So he specifically chooses models that he can interpret and explain to his audience later on. Another important stage, just keep in mind what you're going to be presenting throughout the whole process. And here we're going to jump straight to the top 5 tips because that's where the value is. So now, know your audience. And that is part of what Greg does, but also just understand, are they technical? To what level can you present to them? How can you engage them better? What exactly, what kind of questions are they going to be posing? Like knowing your audience, and that's why talking to them throughout the project is actually quite important. State the problem and benefit early. Remember at the start, I told you that we're going to talk about the data science process, and that there's a problem that there's many types of data science process and there's no structure. And then by the end of this presentation, you'll have a structured approach in your head. So that was showing you the problem and the benefit at the start, right? Rather than you having to wait, like, why am I sitting here? Tip number 3, use clear, jargon-free language. Remember, the people you're presenting to are not data scientists, most likely, and they will not understand super technical things. Tip number 4, tell them a story. Like in this presentation and most of the ways like I like to present is you don't just like roll hard facts, but you actually tell them, remember the story of Ulf Morris about the 42 million to 2 million, right? You're not going to forget that. That will help keep that knowledge in your memory. In fact, and like each one of these had stories. But in fact, like I saw a presentation recently, like a TED talk kind of or something similar, where this lady was saying that when we're just exchanging facts, only 2 areas of the brain are engaged. I forgot what they're called, but like the area of the brain that is responsible for interpreting language and changing it into data, and the area of the brain that's responsible for generating language. That's all. But if you're telling a story to someone, all of a sudden their imagination switches on, and like more than 5 areas of the brain are working. The part that is like visual images. You're like when I was saying that story about Ulf Morris, you were thinking, okay, so that was what was it? Data preparation. So you were thinking about 40 million, 2 million, 3 companies, 5 companies. What are they doing? How they're interacting? Other areas of the brain, like so visual. You might hear things. You might even smell, like if we're talking about flowers or something. But you might be able to like feel something, right? So more areas of brain engaged, you're going to retain that information better and understand it. And finally, keep them engaged. Get them to stand up, do a stretch, or ask them a question, get them to laugh. That's the best part. Like when you get people to laugh, that means they're with you. Okay, top 5 tips. Okay, know your audience, state the problem, you and benefit, use clear jargon-free language, tell them a story, keep them engaged. Okay, so to recap, there's our data science process. Identify the question. All right, let's go. Who remembers number 2? Prepare the data. Who remembers number 3? Analyze the data. 4? And 5? Present your findings. There you go. Engaging the audience, right? Okay. So that's our data science process. Went through all 5. We're gonna have a Q&A at the end. Podcast episodes, as I promised. If you want to take a photo of this, so there's a podcast. If you haven't listened to it yet, Super Data Science. It's on iTunes and Stitcher and other places. These are the episodes we talked about. These 2 at the bottom we haven't spoken about yet. That'll be in the bonus part, but still I include them because they're cool episodes. So if you want to take a photo and then go check out these episodes, I highly recommend. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And hope people online are still there, because now we got the bonus time. So thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate you guys being here. And so what I wanted to share was I wrote a book. It took me 1.5 years. It got published in January. And this really is a book that's like, the publishing house contacted me and they're like, you have courses, do you want to write a book? I was like, I don't want to write a book. Like I've heard how much time and effort it takes, and it was a lot of time and effort. But then I thought it would be cool actually if we wrote a different book. And they're like, oh, let's do a book in R or Python. So it's like, no, there's enough of those books. This book is just intuition, just data science and all the stuff we talked about, but in more detail. So it's based on the data science process. The 5 parts are what goes into the core, the structure of this book. And then there's no code. So basically you can read the book on a train or a plane or wherever and just understand all these things, algorithms, whatever it means for your career. Anyway, long story short, I want to give you this book for free. There's 200 books that we're giving away. Like there was 50, but then a lot of the organizers told me that we had like 150 people watching online, so we upped it up. There's 200 books that we're giving away. All you have to do is send an email to support@datasciencego.com. In the email, send me my book in capital letters. You can add exclamation marks at the end if you want. Then in the body, say your postal address, and you need to do this by Sunday. So there's no catch. We won't request you to do anything. This is absolutely yours. I'm really passionate about this project, and I want to popularize the book. So the only thing I can ask is, if you like it, don't just keep it on your shelf. Give it to a friend or a colleague, or lend it to them so that they can learn a bit more, so they can go through these steps. Like, data science community is really sharing, giving. Support that. So we're going to be sending those. Make sure to send that by Sunday. And the other thing that we want to give you as well is, as mentioned, we have the Data Science Go conference happening in October this year. It's in San Diego. I know it's not in San Francisco, so it's a bit of a stretch. But we're giving you this a voucher, which is again on the screen. It expires on this Sunday, but basically with this coupon code you can get 25% off if you want to come to our conference. We're going to have 25 amazing speakers there. So I'll bring the slide back up in a second so that you can keep it on. But basically we're going to have 25 amazing speakers, 2-day event. I hand selected every single one of them. Some of them have been on the podcast, some of them are coming on the podcast. And each one is really cool. So basically it's not a technical event. It's not just data, science, technical side of things, machine learning. It's people sharing their stories and successes. So here's some examples. So it's me, Adlan, Fabio Vasquez coming from Mexico. Who knows Randy Lam? Yeah, who's seen, really popular guy. So he went from 0 followers on LinkedIn to 45,000 in 1 year. He's a data scientist who shares his journey and how he really highly recommend checking Randy's podcast, blogs and so on. Tari Singh coming from Europe, Sinan, Ben Taylor, AI, Dee Bremer, who we talked about today, Dan Schibler from Twitter. Basically, that's some of the speakers. They're coming, there's more, didn't fit on this page. I'd like to show the video now, is that okay? Sorry, do you mind helping me out, please? So I'm going to just show you a video of what happened last year. So this is our 2nd year running the event, and wanted to get you a bit excited. Remember the stretch we were doing and the high fives? So yeah, you're going to be doing a lot of that there. It's an event that
Data science has a great opportunity to change the world.
Yeah?
Data science has a great opportunity to change the world. I'm actually not in data science, but I want to be.
Things change over time. They always change, just like data does.
Data now is everywhere. It's all around us.
What makes data science what it is the fact that there's so many different fields that are intersected at data science.
Businesses can make decisions about the future.
I'm excited to meet lots of new people and learn things that they're doing that I can take back into the work that I'm doing.
I got a lot of value. There was a lot of good points each of the speakers made. I think this is one of the most useful conferences for anyone that wants to get into data science.
Did anybody go, by the way? Did anybody go? You went last. What did you think? Yeah? What was your favorite part? Yeah. Kyle sees that. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, so, yeah, thank you. But could you put the slides back up, please?
What?
The slides.
Slide? Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, we'd love to see you all there. Basically, yeah, so I wanted to show you this slide here. So these two guys right here, they were attendees at the conference. And so Neelab was already kind of like into data science, machine learning. After conference, he's grown his career. I can't say this is 100% attributed to the conference, but he's now got a job as a data scientist at Walmart, and he's going to be coming back as a speaker. So you can see he's a speaker this time. And Rico Meinl, he was a student, had not much to do with data science. Now he's organizing his own meetup in Germany. He lives in Germany. He's about AI. He's introduced AI into his company. He got so inspired. At the conference, he was like, I want to be a speaker next year. I told him, well, you first have to prove that you're good enough. And like he went away, and like within 3 months, he did so much. I was like, yeah, you have to come back as a speaker now. So yeah, so they're coming as speakers this time. Yeah, that's the conference. We'd love to see you guys there. And what I wanted to show you with these like examples and some of the examples that we had before, let's say Randy's coming as well, that it's some of these stories that we talked about, they seem as they're like, you can't reach them. They're like up there and you know, it's impossible to get there. That's not true. Like these guys, Randy, a lot of people went from 0 to hero, or like Emanuele, right? It took him a year. Like that's all it takes, maybe less time. It's all possible, and you can also all be there. And that's what our event's about. It's about helping you guys get there, and you know, helping each other out and building this community. It's not just an event; it's a community of data scientists. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave this slide on here so you guys can see it. But that's all. Thank you very much for your attention today. I hope this was helpful and useful.
So the next part is the last part, and we will have the fireside chat. It's Kirill, and I have several questions for you, and followed by the Q&A session. So have a seat.
Adjust that. Hi.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Alex, is ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so you mentioned you used to be work at Deloitte as a consultant. So what made you found super data science and be a data educator?
So that's a good question. I was actually, back in the day, I was into Forex trading, and what I was looking for, I needed to learn Java. So I'm quite a passionate guy, and once I get my head into something, like I'm like, oh, I gotta do everything. I already knew a couple of programming languages, like algorithmic trading, around it, and need to learn Java. I did a course on Udemy about Java. At the very end, the instructor said that, hey, look, John Percival, I think his name, John Percival. He had like a little lecture saying, hey, I make a living teaching online. Excuse me, and I wrote a little ebook, which is £4.95 on eBay, on Amazon. And you know, just check it out. I was like, oh, why not? Check it out. I clearly remember I was in Melbourne at my friend's place, and I was like, oh, this is really cool reading this ebook, which is like really, you know, basic type of things, you know, how he teaches and why he doesn't. Like, wow, it's really cool. I should try it out. And I tried it out and went well. Like, you know, some people liked my teaching style, and you know, after a while, I had. After a year, I quit my job and just kept doing it. So basically, a £4.95 ebook changed my life.
Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned about the whole data science process. So you think which part is the most important?
I think they're all very important, extremely, right? Like you cannot do certain ones without the other ones. From that perspective, the data preparation part or identifying the problem like is extremely important. So you can't let go of that. But in my view, to be a super successful data scientist, to be like not a great data scientist, but like an amazing, super valued like incredible data scientist, you have to be good at the last one. The part 5 presentation, you gotta master that really well, and you gotta be the person that connects. Like a lot of people can do data prep and crunch numbers and get the insights, but not many people can actually present their findings and be that bridge between the data world and the business decision-making world. Those are the top data scientists, are the ones that get paid the most, and those are the ones that have the most fulfilling careers.
Yeah, I agree with that. So you mentioned about the importance of the ETL for the data preparation, and to prevent the garbage in and garbage out. Do you think is there any like efficient method to prevent this thing happen, or how to ensure the qualified data?
Well, my only comment there would be do quality assurance. That's the most important stage. A lot of people don't skip that or don't do that enough. I would go overboard with quality assurance. Get your colleagues on board. I don't know, get your manager, get somebody else to you have to have at least one other person that you can work with who can check your, because sometimes you cannot see your own mistakes. It's hard to see them. Or check it the next day, wake up in the morning and check it when you're in a different mindset.
Okay. So, right now the big data is really big. It's a huge amount of data. So when we're dealing with the big data problem, we cannot cover them all. So sometimes we need to make the decision to keep something or to give up something. So is there any principle about what to keep and what to give up?
Well, that's a good question. I think it really depends on the project, and you're right, there is a lot of data these days. So in that podcast with Ruben Kogel, I think it's number 39, we talked exactly about that they have too much data. Sometimes the problem is you don't have enough data, but a lot of, now more and more it's becoming, there's too much data. I think it really depends on the project, but my advice would be just keep in mind that whatever analysis you're doing, whatever visualization you're creating, whatever insights you're extracting, is going to reduce the number of information. You never will ever, through your analysis, increase the number of information. If you're increasing the amount of information, you're manipulating the data. You're adding your own things to the data. That's incorrect. So whatever you're doing is always going to reduce the number of data, so don't be afraid to reduce it further. It's just a natural situation, a natural effect of your analysis is to narrow things down. And remember, less is more, so don't be afraid of that. Know where the balance is in your project.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned about the super data sciences, data science kind of community with more than 5,000 members in it, right? So how you operate this community and how you keep this community vital?
Well, so on overall, more than 500,000 members. So, and obviously it's less on specifically that on our platform. I think it's 50,000 on Super Data Science. Through Udemy, it's 500,000. We have a newsletter that goes out every week. The podcast, I recorded we publish a session every week, and then we have the 5 Minute Friday episodes also on Fridays. And we try to share new videos on YouTube, new blogs on LinkedIn, and share them with the community. Meetups like this. But our kind of main goal, I'd probably say where we're going with all of this. Our next step for this whole data science world is to get people closer together. So meetups like this are great, but even for instance, people who are presenting at meetups, they can only attend a certain limited number of meetups. But data scientists can just meet up together and discuss things. You can hang out on the weekend, you can hang out after work, you can chat together. Our goal in the next 2 or 3 years is actually to facilitate for data scientists to interact with their local other data scientists and build a community or build little groups and do projects together. Because I personally think that that's the best way that you can learn. There's a saying and Randy Lau loves this saying, he told me about this one. When one teaches, two learn, right? So when you're teaching somebody something, there's actually 2 people learning, them and yourself. So that's what it's all about. It's not just about us teaching. We've started this process, but next we want to democratize this process.
Okay. So I noticed the headquarters of the Super Data Science is in Queensland, right? Yeah, Austria. So is there any plan to move to the United States?
So the headquarters of the company is indeed in Queens, a global company. In terms of Australia, I'm the only Australian employee, We have, I think we have 10 people in Colombia, out of all places in the world. We have a person who right now is Bali. We have people in Philippines. We have people in Europe. We have people that work from all over the world. It's a decentralized online organization. So if anybody's ever interested in working in super data science, watch out for our newsletter. We sometimes send job advertisements, and it's like completely location independent, and also just time flexible. Like we don't have working hours.
Okay, thank you. So next I will give the questions to the audience. So you have any questions to Priya? Whoa, it's the time to raise your hands.
All right, let's do this. Shoot.
So you made it sound like machine learning, you don't really need to understand the math, and data science is pretty easy. So why is it that so many top data scientist positions look for people with PhDs?
Great question. Sorry, what's your name?
Oh, I'm Maya.
Maya. So Maya was asking, for the benefit of our online audience and the rest, I mentioned in your presentation that machine learning, you don't need to know the math, and it's quite simple, and data science is also simple. Why are so many companies looking for PhDs at the same time? What's going on? So that is exactly what we're addressing, not through super data science, but through, in some way, we will be more and more addressing through super data science, but right now we're addressing through Data Science Go, the conference you saw there. We're calling it the data science gap. It's the gap of, there's the skills, but employers are looking for PhDs or somebody with 10 years of experience. Data science has only been around for, like 10 years or so. Yeah, less than 10 years. So, like, how can somebody have 10 years of experience and something has not been around for that long? So, the problem is lack of education, lack of understanding. It's such a new field. It's so unstructured. Like, remember we looked at the example of accounting. Accounting is very structured. It's very clear. For this position, we need this person and must have this much experience. This position, this person. In data science, they don't know what they need. They're like, okay, well, based on what we would say for a developer / a finance manager / an IT expert, we probably should say something like this. So they make up these job descriptions completely out of the air, and then they expect people to conform to them, which is like looking for unicorns. That's where this whole saying of data science is a unicorn comes from, well, in my view anyway. Because like they're overcomplicating what they want. They don't understand. A lot of the time, companies don't understand. They want the best for themselves, for the world, for the person they're hiring, but they don't really understand this field well enough. And that's why we're bringing together, and say Data Science Go, we're bringing together both students, industry experts, and thought leaders, successful data scientists, and we're bringing employers, recruiters, companies, executives, and directors to in Data Science Go. We actually have 3 streams. We have a stream for starting data scientists. We have a stream for data scientists who want to progress their career. Like, so the starting data scientist means like you're either a student or you're going in through a different industry. Like how to leverage that experience that you have in a different industry and use it in data science. We have a stream for data scientists who are already practicing and they want to progress their skills. And we have a stream for head honchos, who are executives, directors, business owners, entrepreneurs, to educate them. And about 10% of our audience, this year is 400 people, 10% of our audience, based on prior experience, are head honchos. So we'll have about 40 or 50 people who will be educating and helping understand what data science is all about. And unfortunately, there is that gap, but it's closing down, because companies who are going to maintain that position, they're going to fall behind. You don't need a PhD to apply data science. That's the truth, right? That's the reality of things. If they're going to keep looking for PhDs, they're going to fall behind. They're going to have to pay more, and they're not going to. The data science jobs are, on average, stay open 45 days, whereas the industry average for the US is 40 days. So they stay 5 days longer, open for 5 days longer than the average jobs. Why exactly that problem? Because until they had to get their unicorn, or they realize that they need to adjust their job description, or they might get a recruiter who's good, who can negotiate between the 2 parties. So it's a data science gap, and we're addressing it.
Yeah, and also I want to add one more comments on that, because right now you can notice there's more and more data science tools, and we have like auto machine learning or like machine learning, or there are different machine learning data platform. For example, the big machine learning, big ML. So basically, I think within the time there will be more data science tools. In here. So I think the barrier between the technology barrier for the data science will be lower and lower. So we call that kind of like a SIBO data scientists. Like everyone can do the machine learning. Everyone can apply the machine learning to the real business problem. Okay. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank
please.
You talk a lot about mentoring in the podcast, and the outline, and there's another mentor that you named. But how do you set up a relationship with mentors to make it more formalized, so that both of you can get something out of it?
Okay, thank you. So what was your name?
Jack.
Jack. Oh, that's right. Sorry, Jack. We met just before the elevator. So Jack was asking about mentoring. I do mention quite a bit on the podcast, and I think it is very important for people to have mentors in any profession, especially in data science and in life in general. The question was, how do you structure your relationship with your mentor to make it more formal, I believe you said, so that you kind of like have, you get more out of it, right? And just build that relationship in general. So mentoring, very important. You will, so if you send that email and you get the book, you will read about that. I talk about like at least twice in the book. I've personally had a couple of mentors, most notably Richard Hopkins was my mentor at Deloitte. He was my manager, and then we became more friends. And even when we stopped working on projects, he was my mentor. And right now, my mentor is Vitaly Dolgov. He's a turnaround consultant in Australia, and like we catch up occasionally. So how do you formalize? Well, I wouldn't say that you need to formalize it extremely, like write it down or have a set of rules, or like how we're going to catch up and when and things like that. That's like making it too formal. That's more of a coach, right? So you can get a coach, but a coach is a mentor who you pay. And that's sort of normal as well, right? Like you pay for advice, life advice, and other things. That should be formal because you're paying money there. But here in a mentoring relationship, mentor-mentee, it shouldn't be formal, like too formal, but at the same time, it shouldn't be too relaxed as well, I would say. What I would suggest is, once you identify a person who you want to be a mentor, and you've had like a couple of catch-ups, the main formal thing that I would do is I would tell them, hey, look, I'm really enjoying these catch-ups and learning a lot. Would you agree to be my mentor? And they'll be like, they might be a bit like, reserved. They might be okay with it like right away, but they might be reserved, what does it mean? How much time do they have to commit? And then you just like, be honest, like, they don't have to commit that much time. Like I catch up with my mentors once a month at most, right? Like usually once a quarter is enough. Sometimes like once a year. Like once a year is a bit too rare. Like once every 6 months is enough usually as well. So you just write down a list of questions, and the other formal part of it is that it is the onus is on you as the mentee to arrange these catch-ups, to reach out to a mentor and to ask for their time. And one other thing that you should need to remember is that, again, for you, is that a mentor-mentee relationship can never be one way. It can never be, all right, I'm learning from you and I'm not giving you anything back. Nobody is interested in that type of thing. Like, there are people who might do it as a gesture of goodwill, but if you want a productive, growing relationship with your mentor, you need to add value. Like if they're adding 80%, you should be adding 20%. You can't be 100 to 0. There should be some parts that they can learn from you. So identify those parts that your mentors can learn from you. For instance, with both Richard and Vitaly, Richard is a restructuring consultant, and Vitaly, and now he's a CEO at a company in Tasmania. And Vitaly is a turnaround consultant. So from them, I know I can learn a lot about how to operate a business, how to build a business, how to deal with extremely difficult situations, or even I know they're successful in some parts of the areas of their life, personal life, right? So I know I can ask them about those, about their hobbies or about these other things. But also at the same time, I know that I can add value to them. Like they're interested in data, they're interested in data science and technology, where it's going, and so I make sure to conversations not to let it go one way. Like after I get I see that the conversation has been going my way for like an hour. I'm like, okay, what's bothering you? What can I help you with? Or you come with something prepared already, or you just ask the question and then you share your insight. So that's what I would say. So one, tell them that they're your mentor. Two, make sure you arrange their catch-ups, not less frequent than once every 6 months. I wouldn't do more often than once a month. So that makes like 2 to 12 catch-ups per year. And number 3, make sure it's not one way. Good? Thank you, Jack. Yes, please.
Yeah, I have a question from our streaming audience.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Hey, guys.
He's asking, do you have some suggestion for data scientist job hunting? And
how to jump into the first data scientist job.
Ah, that's so cool. Yeah, that's true. It's interesting you asked the question because the presentation I did in San Diego was actually about that. It was called Guerrilla Tactics to Break into Data Science, and we discussed a lot about those things. So maybe we'll release it as like a webinar or video, or maybe I'll do it again sometime. Like I highly recommend checking it out because like there's so many ways to get into data science. That like a lot of people think that data science is this like you have to go through the formal process. Like ultimately, even if you want like a normal job in data science, like data science, machine learning expert, AI, deep learning, and like all these types of data analytics, visualization. 70 to 80% of recruiting happens behind the curtains. The job descriptions that you see online, it's only 20%. The rest happens to connection, to networking. That's why this meetup is so important. Not only will you learn, but you will connect, network with each other, and then maybe one of you might need to grow a data science team, and then they'll invite another guy or a girl, and you grow like that. That's why conferences are also important because you get to network with people, you exchange business cards, bring your business cards if you're coming. That's important, right? Like print them out, or at least make your own. It costs like $100. That's an important part. Then there's other ways. My main suggestion, if you want to get into a conventional data science role, my main suggestions would be to build your online presence. Who has LinkedIn? Put your hand up. Who doesn't have LinkedIn? All right, good. Well, if you don't, and you're not putting your hand up, then you need to get it soon. Build your online presence, have a LinkedIn profile, and moreover, share things. This is a community where people share. That's how Randy Lau built. He has like 3 jobs in data science now, starting from 0 last year. Like 0 followers and 0%. I don't know how many jobs or what he had, but like he's definitely grown a lot. He's just shared his experience, how he's learning this. He's shared 7 articles in 1 year and went from 0 followers to 45,000 followers. The LinkedIn limit of connection is 30,000. He exceeded the LinkedIn limit of connections. Now you can only follow him, not even connect with him. So all he did was shared 7 articles, and if you look through them, each one is like learning machine learning with the Kaggle data set on whatever health it was or something like that. Then another one, learning data science through the Titanic data set and things like that. So he actually shared his process, how he was going through the code, shared this bit of code, shared, like each article took him 2 weeks to write, but that's a time worthwhile spent. If you're gonna end up a thought leader in data science and people are gonna learn from you, and therefore when a company, the problem is, this whole data science gap, what that creates is that there's data scientists and people who can do the job, but they don't have the right experience for the job descriptions. And there's companies that desperately need data scientists, right? Like AI is the new electricity, says Andrew, right? And the founder of Coursera. Like data science is going to be as ubiquitous as it's the sexiest job of the 21st century. It's going to be everywhere. Like electricity is everywhere, data science is going to be everywhere, AI is going to be everywhere. Every company, like, can you imagine a business now? Just give me one. If you have an example in your head, give me one. An example of a business, any industry that doesn't use electricity today. Can anybody think of anything? No, right? Unless it's like some remote desert and it's like they're selling sand or something, right? Like you cannot think of single industry, like business, let alone industry, let alone business that doesn't use electricity, and therefore, like that's where we are now. Like, but 100 years ago, there was like electricity wasn't that widespread. There are tons, majority of businesses weren't using electricity probably, and so. That's where we are with data science now. There are companies, like 10 years ago, it was individual companies. Now there's like thousands, hundreds of thousands that are starting to use this. But there's still millions of businesses out there. Trust me, there's millions, like hundreds of millions of businesses out there that will be using data science in 10, 20 years from now. Or they will not exist anymore. 40% of the Fortune 500 companies will no longer exist in the next 10 years. 40% of Fortune 500, of the most successful companies, will not be around. Because of technology, because of they don't know how to prepare where the world's going. Data science gap is one of those examples when they don't know where the world's going and how to prepare for it. And therefore, we have a ton of companies who want to use data science and use this. They just don't know how to write job descriptions, how to hire the right people. So what you have to do, all you have to do is put yourself out there and make yourself stand out so they see you as, you know, that one sparkling, I don't know, what's an example? One sparkling stone amidst the rest of the stones. Like right now they're going through this ocean of data science, they don't know who to pick. But if you're gonna be standing out like up there, you're gonna get like thousands of job offers. Seriously. Like that's you know, after Deloitte, that's all I did. I started sharing stuff. I didn't even have followers. I had like 500 like connections on LinkedIn. Just started sharing stuff. Like within a few weeks, I got 3 job offers. 2 from banks, 1 from an industry, like what's it called, superannuation in Australia called pension fund, right? Like right away. So it's all in your hands. It's not as hard, right? Like this is the question came from online. Just do the work, you know, put in a little bit of work and get out of your comfort zone, write a few blog posts. You know, I have a hard time writing blog posts. It takes me a month, not 2 weeks, a month to write a blog post. The recent one I wrote on blockchain took me 3 months to write. It was super hard, but I still do it. Like, but I found a different medium. For me, video or podcast, audio. Find your medium if you don't want to write blog posts. But blog posts work really well because you have LinkedIn. You don't need to go in. You don't need to create your website. Just share them on LinkedIn. That's it. And build a following. Like, and talk to me a year from now, and you know, you'll probably be presenting at the conference. Okay. Yes, please.
Hi, Carol. How are you?
Sir?
How are you?
Thanks. Good. How you going?
I'm doing all right. Would you suggest the C-World aspiring data science to actually apply data science methods to create our own portfolio by, for example, using the data that we have from all the companies that we have applied for? Like, for example, okay, I applied for these companies using this type of format. It didn't work. Now I'm going to do A/B testing. I'm going to use this type of resume format. Let's see what works better.
Okay, great. Thank you. Interesting question. What is your name?
Eric.
Eric. Thank you, Eric. So, question was, should we use data science to analyze our own process of applying for data science jobs, right? Data science and data scientists.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that could work. Like, I wouldn't analyze, you know, A/B test your resumes because, like, I don't believe in resumes anymore. Like, seriously, I haven't had a resume for ages, and I think people, like, by building an online presence, you should put yourself in a situation when you're hunting for jobs and they're hunting for you. You know, where does the word headhunter comes from? They're hunting for you. They want you so much. Trust me, they won't care about your resume. Like, seriously, qualifications don't mean anything. Resumes don't mean anything. What matters is your experience and your capacity to deliver value to the business. And how is that demonstrated? Through your capacity to demonstrate things. So I would say, yes, that's a great idea to apply, but I would use it on the stuff that you do online, all right? So I shared this blog post versus this blog post, which one worked better? I shared it here, I shared it there, which one works better? Or, you know, like, does this length of blog post work better? Does this length of blog post work better? What, you know, that type of stuff. For sure, like, I apply data science all the time in my life. You know, like, for instance, one of my favorite things in the world is the law of large numbers. Who knows the law of large numbers? Yeah, the mathematical concept that the more the better, basically. Like, if you, the more, like, as you increase the sample size, the average of your observed average will converge to the expected mean of your experiment or whatever it is. So, you know, whatever I'm doing, I'm like, okay, so it's kind of like helps you understand if your results are statistically significant or not and things like that. So whatever I'm doing, I'm like, okay, so I've done this 5 times, you know, like, and I'm getting this, but or, you know, like, I need to do it like 50 times to be more confident in my result and things like that. So we'll go into detail on that, but like, yeah, like, I apply data science. It's like one of my favorite professions is a psychologist. Like, those people, you know, like a firefighter gets to use their skills only at work. Psychologist is like talking to you and they're already digging your brain. Like, stop it. Leave your work at work. Talk to me like a human. There we go. Hopefully that's helpful. Thanks, Eric.
Okay, because of the time limitation, we'll have only one question, so...
One more question.
Yeah, one more question.
Who's going to be lucky? All right, please.
Hi, I'm Basu.
Hi, Basu. Good, thanks. How are you going?
In one of your recent podcasts, you talked about feature engineering regarding the data. So just wanted to ask you, like, when you're just starting out within a company, they have so much data and their processes that, like, when you start going there, you need to make a decision just to automate that. Like, heard about like Berta or algorithm or something like that that tell the significance of each feature. But I was just wanted to know your take on like how we can go about like starting on that so that we can create like relevant models to the business.
Okay, that's a good question. Thank you. So I think there was a podcast with Sinan Özdemir, right? He just released a new book on future engineering. So the question was, how do we go about when we're starting out? How do we go about feature engineering to find the right a lot of columns, right? If you have a small data set of 10 columns, you just use all of them and then kind of decide. But like if you have like 1,000 columns or so on, like how do you pick out the ones that are going to be the features? They call features. How are you going to pick out our attributes that are going to be most valuable to the business, that are going to actually, or not pick out, how do you create new features, right? You might combine two columns to create something and so on. So that's an interesting one. So in another podcast with Matt Denshow, we talked about H2O. It's a platform, I haven't used it myself, but he talks a lot about it. Yeah, you've used H2O?
Yeah.
What are your comments there?
Yeah, my opinion for the H2O is I think if their business model is a little bit far from the pinpoint, is the platform or the path. So for the business side or enterprises, they usually want to have a direct solution to their pinpoint or like the use case solutions. So sometimes you need to grow more to build more like model or the use case solutions on the platform rather than platform itself.
Okay, and I'll just add to that H2O is kind of like like Data Robot. Have you heard of Data Robot? Yeah? So it's like you put in your data and then it spits out a model for you. It's kind of automation of machine learning. But you gotta pay for it, whereas H2O you don't have to pay. So that can be helpful if you're like really in a situation where it has to be done. But my advice would be like if you're starting out, have a few methods under your belt that you're gonna be using, right? So one thing you need to know is that some algorithms allow you to interpret the features, right? So for instance, logistic regression, if you know how to interpret the results properly, the parameters, you will know, okay, so this actually helps us predict whatever we're predicting. This doesn't help us as much, so I'm going to get rid of those. So and then have some techniques, for instance, that you commonly kind of use. For instance, like dividing one parameter by the other, or adding two parameters, or things like that. I'm trying to think of one common one. Like say, for instance, you have age and you have income, right? So you're doing some segmentation analytics for a bank, and you have age and you have the income of these people. And maybe individually those parameters don't tell you much, but something that you would do with those two is you would divide income by age. So you would know, like obviously you expect that the older people get, their income should grow if they have a stable job and their careers grow. But sometimes you might have like a spike, like at a young age, you might have a spike and you'll see that, oh wow, it looks like people at 25 or these specific people at 25, they're earning more than we expected them. Why is that? And you dig into it further. So to answer your question even further, domain knowledge is important, right? So if you're working for a bank, unless you've kind of done these problems before or you read about it somewhere, you won't know to divide income by age. Or if you're working for a mining company, or like what are they called? So you're doing predictive maintenance on some of the machines, you won't know to divide the hours worked by the tonnage of coal that they've moved. Like you gotta dig into the business and read and ask around. That will really help with feature engineering, domain knowledge.
Yeah, just like what I mentioned before, if it's just a machine learning platform without domain knowledge, it's very hard to do the feature engineering. And so that's why I mentioned it's not just for the platform itself, you have to put the domain knowledge in it to build a solution to the, some vector, for example, the fintech solution or the anti-fraud solution, very, very niche vector on that. So that's really need the domain knowledge on that. So that is not just about the platform itself. They can help you to be more efficient, but still need your intelligence.
All right. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys.
So that's all. I just forgot to introduce about myself until the end. By the way, my name is Kei. I'm the organizer for the DTalk. And this time, thank you so much, careers here, and say hi to the streaming audience. And yeah, so just registering to our DTalk, and we will bring the next more and more this high-profile individuals about the latest technology in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Yeah,